Chapter 1158. When Ji Tianqing heard the loud noises in the sky, he thought that demonic beasts were fighting. After all, he had seen this kind of thing every day during his journey in the great swamp of the southern wasteland. When he looked at the sky above the mound, he found that there were two demonic beasts as huge as palaces attacking a 1,000-meter-long flood dragon. The two giant beasts were 100 meters long and looked like cheetahs, but their bodies were grayish-white and covered in layers of cloud patterns. They had 4 broad wings and long fluffy tails, like those of a grayish-white squirrel. They waved their gigantic front claws and unleashed an overwhelming amount of 5-colored spiritual light, attacking the dark gray flood dragon from both sides. The flood dragon kept roaring angrily and spewing out black water pillars, as well as ice blades and frost swords, to fight against the two giant beasts. The attacks of the two sides, the light blades and the shockwaves, kept colliding with each other, creating loud rumbling noises. The colorful light covered the sky for dozens of kilometers and created violent shock waves. The entire mound shook violently, and huge pits appeared on the ground, splashing mud and wood chips all over the sky. The swamp around the mound was also dented by the shock waves, and mud splashed everywhere. The area within a radius of 30 kilometers was chaotic and dirty, making it impossible for people to get close. Ji Tianqing stared at the two giant demonic beasts, carefully sizing them up. Xiao Han raised his eyebrows and said to him through sound transmission, "Those are cloud-spotted beasts, high-ranked demonic beasts with powerful bloodlines. Adult cloud-spotted beasts have the strength of the soul-refining realm." Looking at the size and appearance of the two cloud-spotted beasts, they are obviously adults, and their strength is comparable to the second or third level of the soul-refining realm. But the flood dragon fighting with the cloud-spotted beasts seems a little strange. Hearing him say so, Ji Tianqing glanced at the two cloud-spotted beasts, and then his eyes fell on the dark gray flood dragon. The flood dragon was 1,000 meters long, covered in dark gray scales, with a pair of dark green eyes, and 4 thick and huge claws, which contained the strength to break mountains. Without a doubt, this was an azure dragon. Ji Tianqing sized it up and immediately frowned, revealing a puzzled expression. Azure dragon? This azure dragon's appearance and aura are somewhat familiar. Where have I seen it before? He frowned and pondered for a while. Suddenly, he recalled that he had seen an azure dragon in the evil dragon pool in the southern desolation's great swamp a year ago. Yes, that's it. But why did it leave the evil dragon pool and appear here? Ji Tianqing instantly confirmed that this azure dragon was the one in the evil dragon pond. Could it be that fool's wish has been fulfilled? This thought flashed through his mind, and his eyes shone brightly as he looked around. As expected, he soon saw 2 tiny figures on the battlefield in the sky. They were 2 tall and sturdy human martial artists dressed in golden armor. They were currently on the left and right of the azure dragon, attacking the 2 cloud-spotted beasts with all their might. Both of them had long golden hair, wore armor and capes, and held broadswords in their hands. Both of them had not reached the soul-tempering realm and were only in the sky origin realm. They were no match for the cloud-spotted beasts at all. Even if they used all their secret skills to attack the 2 cloud-spotted beasts with all their might, it was useless. They could not hurt the beasts at all. On the contrary, the shockwaves from the battle between the cloud-spotted beasts and the azure dragon made the 2 of them retreat. They were covered in blood and were severely injured. The battle was not going well. The outcome of the battle was about to be decided. The cloud-spotted beasts' cultivation level was about the same as the azure dragon's, and they had the advantage in numbers. Of course, they could defeat the azure dragon. Not only did the azure dragon have to fend off the 2 cloud-spotted beasts, but it also had to protect the 2 men in golden armor. The situation was getting more and more dangerous. The 2 men in golden armor were covered in blood. They were at the end of their rope and were badly injured. However, they did not want to retreat. They stubbornly held on and helped the azure dragon fend off the attacks from the cloud-spotted beasts. The attacks from the cloud-spotted beasts were getting fiercer and fiercer. They all opened their bloody mouths and roared into the sky, causing the wind and clouds within 100 miles to gather into a hurricane. Whoosh! Whoosh! 2,000-meter-tall tornadoes wrapped in pale white divine soul blades swept toward the 2 men in golden armor with unparalleled power. The 2 men immediately looked desperate. They desperately stimulated their potential. Dazzling golden light shone from their bodies as they turned around and fled into the distance. Unfortunately, the tornadoes were too powerful. They released a terrifying devouring power that covered an area of 30 miles. The 2 men in golden armor seemed to have fallen into a swamp. They ran slower and slower. In the end, they were swallowed back into the tornadoes. The two men in golden armor were about to be swallowed by the tornadoes. What awaited them was definitely being shredded to pieces by the tornadoes and dying on the spot. The Azure Dragon roared anxiously and immediately flew over to rescue the two men in golden armor. However, the two cloud-spotted beasts blocked it and attacked it from both sides, sending it flying back. At this critical moment, Ji Tianqing arrived above the mound and flew into the battlefield with a whoosh. When he got closer, he saw that the two men in golden armor were outsiders. They were the Golden Lion clan members he had seen before. One of them was a middle-aged man, the other a young man. The tall and burly young man was covered in wounds. His face was covered in blood, and his hair was disheveled. He was in a sorry state. Even so, he immediately recognized him. He was the prince of the Golden Lion clan, Xueqi. It really is that silly boy. This thought flashed through Ji Tianqing's mind. His eyes revealed a trace of relief. He did not hesitate to cast a spell and drew the cold pitch-black broken sword. Draw your sword. Whoosh. The divine sword was unsheathed. Cold light flashed. 200-meter-long white sword lights formed by divine souls instantly cut through the turbid sky and slashed at the two tornadoes. At this moment, Xueqi and the middle-aged man were sucked into the tornadoes. They could not resist the tornadoes at all. The two closed their eyes in despair, waiting for their bodies to be crushed and their bones to be crushed. They waited for death to descend. However, with two earth-shattering booms, the two tornadoes collapsed and dissipated in the blink of an eye. The devouring power that enveloped heaven and earth dissipated. Xueqi and the middle-aged man fell from the sky and smashed into the swamp below. The two of them were stunned. When they came to their senses, they opened their eyes in disbelief. In the next moment, the two of them saw a scene that they would never forget. Ji Tianqing stepped into the sky, holding the broken sword majestically. He casually thrust it forward in a carefree manner. Whoosh! A cold light suddenly appeared and illuminated the sky. A cold light that had been condensed to the limit shot out from the broken sword. It instantly pierced through the sky and hit a cloud-spotted beast. Chapter 1159. The cloud-spotted beast, which had been aggressive and murderous just a moment ago, was actually unable to withstand the might of Ji Tianqing's sword. Just how strong was its defense and strength with its 100-meter-long body? However, in the face of Ji Tianqing's broken sword, it was as fragile as a piece of paper. Even its soul crystal was shattered by the power of this sword. It was shattered into pieces and scattered into the sky along with its flesh and blood. Xueqi and the middle-aged man were stunned. Song Long and the other cloud-spotted beast were also dumbfounded. Everyone momentarily forgot about attacking and killing as they stared at Ji Tianqing, their eyes filled with shock and awe. Only Xiao Han was able to maintain his composure. He was not too surprised by this. After all, he had already witnessed Ji Tianqing's terrifying power. No matter what kind of miracle Ji Tianqing could create, he would feel that it was only natural. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Ji Tianqing waved his hand and unleashed a gigantic golden palm that blotted out the sky, dragging Xueqi and the middle-aged man back. The cloud-spotted beast finally came to its senses. It immediately abandoned Song Long and pounced toward Ji Tianqing with a roar. Roar! It was enraged. It raised its head and roared into the sky. White light surged from its body as it unleashed 3,000-meter-long pillars of divine sense light toward Ji Tianqing. Vast divine power condensed into a scorching white pillar of light. It contained the power to destroy heaven and earth. It was enough to destroy everything within a 25-kilometer radius. The surrounding sky was illuminated. Violent gale-force winds spread, creating a huge vortex in the quagmire around the mound. This was the cloud-spotted beast's most powerful attack. In order to kill Ji Tianqing and avenge its companions, it had unleashed all of its power. Ji Tianqing did not back down. He also unleashed all of his power. He focused all of his essence, energy, and spirit to unleash the most powerful sword strike of his life. Heaven-splitting sword. This was the most powerful sword strike of the combination of essence, energy, and spirit, man and sword, and heavenly sword. The scorching white sword projection that was 1,000 meters long slashed through the sky with the power to destroy everything and struck one of the pillars of divine sense light. Boom! The pillar of spiritual energy collapsed on the spot, shattering into countless fragments that scattered in all directions. The power of the sword light did not decrease in the slightest, and it struck the cloud-spotted beast right in the middle of its head. Boom! With a muffled sound, the cloud-spotted beast's head was sliced open by the sword light. A huge gully appeared from its head to its back and then to its tail. Its 100-meter-long body was split into two halves from the middle by a single slash. Dark red blood gushed out like a torrential flood, sprinkling down from the sky into the swamp. The two halves of the cloud-mottled beast's corpse fell from the sky and smashed into the desolated mound. After the corpse fell to the ground, it twitched a few times before it finally calmed down and stopped moving. This cloud-spotted beast followed in its companion's footsteps and was instantly killed by Ji Tianqing's sword. Not only did its physical body die, even its soul crystal was split into several pieces and shattered on the spot. The battle ended with the death of the two cloud-spotted beasts. Song Long, Shi Zhongjian, and the middle-aged blonde man all stared at this scene with their mouths agape. They did not recover from their shock for a long time. At the same time, a black airship was hiding in the swamp 20 miles away from the mound. This airship was not big, only half a meter long. It was completely black and had an exquisite and beautiful appearance. However, it was a soul-level Dharma treasure. There was a whole new world inside it, and it had a spacious Dharma treasure space. The black airship hid in the mud of the swamp. It did not light up, nor did it emit any spiritual chi waves. It was very difficult to discover it. Inside the flying boat, there was a young man and woman who were watching the situation outside attentively. The young man and woman were both in their early 20s. Their clothes were very exquisite, and their attire was very elegant and noble. The young man was tall and handsome. He wore a long blue robe embroidered with the pattern of a divine bird. The woman was also tall and beautiful. She wore a long yellow dress and had long hair that reached her shoulders. She wore a jade white pearl necklace around her neck. Her facial features were very delicate. Her clear eyes were like autumn water, and her long eyelashes were like two small fans. At this moment, her small cherry mouth opened silently. Her beautiful face was filled with shock, and her eyes were filled with disbelief. After being stunned for a while, she took a deep breath and praised sincerely, "Oh my God, where did that young man come from? He only used 2 swords and killed 2 cloud-spotted beasts? He looks about the same age as me. Why is his strength so terrifying? He has reached the soul-tempering realm. In the history of our Xiao clan, there has never been such a valiant peerless genius, right?" The young man in the blue robe standing beside her also recovered from his shock. His face was still filled with amazement. He nodded in agreement and exclaimed in disbelief, "He is indeed too powerful. If we did not sneak out secretly, how could we see such a shocking genius? Sister Ling, that guy looks younger than me, but he has the strength of the soul-tempering realm. This is simply a miracle. Even if we can't get the tailbone and eyeball of the cloud-spotted beasts, we can see the young genius outside. This trip was not in vain." The delicate girl called Ling frowned slightly. After thinking for a while, she suddenly revealed a sly smile. "Xiao Chen, it is too early for you to say that. I think we might have a chance." That young genius passed by and saw the cloud-spotted beasts attacking the 2 golden-haired men. That was why he came to their rescue. A proud genius like him would definitely disdain to collect the spoils of war, let alone the tailbone and eyeball of the cloud-spotted beasts, right? I dare to bet that the genius will not take another look at the cloud-spotted beasts' bodies. He will most likely leave gracefully and leave us with an admirable back view. As Ling spoke, her clear eyes shone brightly. Her eyes were filled with worship and admiration. The young man called Xiao Chen looked at Ling's joyful expression and felt a little sour in his heart. However, he still nodded in agreement and said, "Sister Ling is still the smart one. It will be the Holy Fire Festival in a few days. We have to get the tailbone and eyeball of the cloud-spotted beasts and refine that magic treasure as soon as possible. Only then will we have full confidence to pass the test and obtain the top 2 spots to obtain the opportunity to leave the Xiao clan." Ling pouted and said with a resentful tone, "I am already sick of staying in the Xiao clan. I am almost bored to death from being trapped in that small world. Anyway, no matter what, I will obtain the top 2 spots in the test and strive to leave the Xiao clan." Chapter 1160. While they were secretly discussing, Ji Tianqing and the others were also talking in the air above the mound in the distance. Shi Zhongjian brought the middle-aged man and flew to Ji Tianqing. He opened his arms excitedly and gave Ji Tianqing a bear hug. He was so excited that he spoke incoherently. "Brother Tianqing. Big brother. I finally see you again." "Ma, That's great. This is such a pleasant surprise. I never thought that I would meet you here. You even saved me. Shi Zhongjian didn't care about his injuries. He didn't even wipe the blood off his face. Then he pulled the middle-aged man beside him and said to Ji Tianqing, Jingu, this is young Master Ji, the man I told you about before. He is a genius whose name shakes the whole continent. Jingu quickly wiped the blood off his face with his sleeve and bowed respectfully. He said to Ji Tianqing, Greetings, young Master Ji. I am Jingu, the commander of the Golden Lion Clan's Imperial Guards. I am responsible for protecting the prince. I am very grateful to young Master Ji for saving my life. After Jingu bowed, Shi Zhongjian excitedly waved at Song Long and shouted, Brother Long, come and see who this is. Song Long was meditating. Hearing Ji Tianqing's call, he quickly flew over and looked at Ji Tianqing closely. Seeing Ji Tianqing's appearance, Song Long raised his eyebrows and said in a complicated tone, It's you? Obviously, Song Long had recognized Ji Tianqing. He was the young man who went through the evil dragon swamp a year ago. Ji Tianqing nodded to Song Long and looked at Shi Zhongjian. He smiled and said, Lion, it seems that your wish has been fulfilled. Shi Zhongjian patted his chest proudly and said with a hearty laugh, Of course. I told you that year that I would make Brother Long acknowledge me. Since I left the southern wasteland and returned to the sect, I have been cultivating hard. Later, I went to the evil dragon pond with my master and several elders. It took me a lot of effort to persuade Brother Long to go back to the sect with me. Ji Tianqing listened to Yi Zhao's story. He looked at Yi Zhao up and down and said, Not bad. You have changed a lot in the past year. You have improved a lot. You are now at the 6th level of the Sky Origin stage. Shi Zhongjian's bodyguard, Jin Gu, was also at the 7th level of Sky Origin stage. In the Tianxian land, these two could be considered as famous elite warriors. But in the depths of the southern desolation swamp, this little bit of strength was utterly insufficient, and he might even lose his life if he encountered 2 cloud streak beasts. Ji Tianqing looked at Shi Zhongjian and asked doubtfully, You've already achieved your wish by getting the blue dragon to follow you. Why did you come to the depths of the lake and even offend the cloud-modeled beast? Shi Zhongjian awkwardly scratched his head and explained, Big Brother Tianqing, you know that a year ago when I came to the southern wasteland Great Marsh, I had 3 objectives to explore. After the blue dragon followed me, I thought that with its protection, I would be more confident. So, I broke into this place to look for a cave dwelling of an ancient elite warrior. I didn't expect that this place was not a cave dwelling, but a nest of demonic beasts. There are 2 cloud streak beasts living here. Ji Tianqing couldn't help but laugh. He said earnestly, You made a big mistake, and you almost lost your life. There are very few elite warriors in the world, and a cave dwelling or a ruin from the ancient era is even rarer. How could it be so easy to find it? Usually, the information and secrets that are easily obtained are mostly false. You can't be so reckless in the future. Shi Zhongjian lowered his head and humbly accepted his criticism. He nodded and said, Big Brother Tianqing, you are right. I won't be so impulsive in the future. Xiao Han stood aside. Seeing that Ji Tianqing and Shi Zhongjian were chatting happily, he walked over. Looks like you guys seem to have known each other for a long time and coincidentally met here today? Shi Zhongjian hurriedly nodded and said with a respectful attitude, Junior Shi Zhongjian greets the senior. I haven't asked senior, you are? Although he didn't know Xiao Han, he saw that Xiao Han was traveling with Ji Tianqing. His attitude towards Xiao Han was very respectful and courteous. Xiao Han saw this point and couldn't help becoming more and more curious about Ji Tianqing. After all, Shi Zhongjian was obviously not an ordinary person. To be able to have the blue dragon as a mount and companion, he definitely had a powerful background. Such a noble young genius was actually abnormally worshipping and getting close to Ji Tianqing. How could Xiao Han not be shocked and puzzled? He waved his hand at Shi Zhongjian and said with a light smile, This seat is just a common person in the world. My name and whatnot don't need to care about it. Shi Zhongjian understood that he was unwilling to reveal his identity, so he didn't ask. After waiting for Shi Zhongjian and Ji Tianqing to catch up for a while, Xiao Han saw that it was about time and said, Tianqing, we should go. This little brother and the others are injured and need to find a place to heal as soon as possible. We shouldn't waste their time. Ji Tianqing nodded and said, Okay. Shi Zhongjian was very excited. Seeing that Ji Tianqing was about to leave, he said with some reluctance, Young Master Ji, are you leaving now? Ji Tianqing slightly nodded and said with a calm voice, I have important matters to attend to, so I have to go first. Lion, if fate wills it, we will meet again. Shi Zhongjian suppressed his reluctance and nodded with a forced smile. Okay, then you go about your business. I also have to leave and find a place to heal. Big brother Tianqing, if you have the chance, you must visit the divine hidden sect as a guest. Of course. Ji Tianqing slightly nodded and waved his hand to bid him farewell. After that, Shi Zhongjian and Jin Gu flew onto the Azure Dragon's back and quickly left this area, flying into the distance. After the Azure Dragon's figure disappeared into the horizon, Ji Tianqing said to Xiao Han, Please wait for me for a moment, I will go and pack up some things. As he spoke, he landed on the ruined mound and searched for the corpses of the cloud spot beasts with sharp eyes. A moment later, he found the soul crystal fragments of 2 cloud spot beasts in the ruins of the mound and in the nearby quagmire. He put away the soul crystal fragments and sent them into the broken sword for burial of heaven to devour and refine. Then he turned around and was about to leave. At this time, a black flying boat suddenly emerged from the quagmire not far away and flew over as fast as lightning. Whoosh! The black flying boat stopped next to Ji Tianqing and a young man and woman with outstanding looks and extraordinary temperaments flew out from it. The young girl wore a light yellow dress. She had a delicate and cute face and a pair of big, expressive eyes. Her entire body exuded a strange aura. She was a little hesitant and nervous. Like a young girl who saw her idol, she flew excitedly and shyly towards Ji Tianqing. She looked like she wanted to say something but hesitated. Young master. Please wait. Chapter 1161. Ji Tianqing's expression and tone were extremely calm and indifferent, and he naturally possessed the dignified aura of a genius expert. Xiao Linger focused her gaze on his face and eyes, and she only saw his appearance clearly at this moment. Her delicate figure instantly shook as her pupils dilated slightly, and her eyes revealed dense joy and excitement. When she was in the distance, she only saw that Ji Tianqing's strength was formidable, his figure tall and handsome, and his entire body had an oppressive heroic aura that was like a sharp sword. Only when she was close did she notice that not only was Ji Tianqing tall and handsome, he was also extremely handsome, with slanted brows and starry eyes, and his eyes were dazzling and vast like stars. No matter if it was Ji Tianqing's age, strength, bearing or appearance, they completely matched the Prince Charming in Xiao Linger's heart. She stared blankly at Ji Tianqing and actually forgot to speak for a time, and she stared fixedly at him without blinking. Ji Tianqing's brows raised once more as he revealed a wisp of a puzzled expression. Miss, what's the matter? Only now did Xiao Linger return to her senses and notice that she'd lost her composure, and she instantly blushed before lowering her head shyly and timidly. Young Master Tianqing. I'm Linger, I have a presumptuous request, and I wonder if I can obtain your agreement? Ji Tianqing nodded lightly and said with an indifferent expression, Please speak, Miss Linger. As for whether I agree or not, we'll discuss it later. Xiao Linger was even more delighted in her heart when she saw that he didn't refuse right away, and she hurriedly explained. Young Master Tianqing, the matter is like this. My clan brother and I have to complete an extremely important matter, and we have no choice but to obtain the tailbone and eyeball of the cloud stripe beast. Unfortunately, our strengths are weak, and we've carefully planned for a long time before hiding nearby this mound and secretly observing for 2 days. Yet we were unable to find an opportunity to make a move. Before she could finish speaking, Ji Tianqing had guessed her meaning, and he stretched out his hand to point at the cloud stripe beast's corpse as he said, I'm not interested in the cloud stripe beast's corpse. If Miss Linger wants it, then please dig it up yourself. Seeing him agree to this matter, Xiao Linger's beautiful face revealed a smile that was like a flower, and she bowed with a heart full of excitement. Thank you, young Master Tianqing. You've helped me greatly. Thank you so much. Ji Tianqing only nodded at her and didn't say anything. He turned around and flew into the sky, following Xiao Han into the distance. Xiao Linger wasn't in a hurry to dig out the tailbone and eyeballs of the cloud streak beast. She stood in the sky as she stared fixedly at Ji Tianqing's figure that vanished into the horizon, and she was still unwilling to withdraw her gaze. Xiao Chen stood beside her and said with a complicated tone, Little sister Ling, he has already left. What are you still looking at? Let's quickly dig out the tailbone and eyeball of the cloud spot beast. If we're late and other demonic beasts come over, we won't have a chance. Only now did Xiao Linger return to her senses. She withdrew her gaze with some reluctance, and then she took out her sword to rummage through the cloud-streak beast's corpse. As she dug out the tailbone and eyeballs of the cloud-streak beast, she still had a pensive look on her face, seemingly distracted. Xiao Chen understood her character the best. He couldn't help but tease her, "Little Sister Ling, looking at your distracted appearance, you couldn't have fallen for that young master, right?" Xiao Linger's face turned red, and a trace of embarrassment flashed in her eyes. However, she did not shrink back. She glared at Xiao Chen angrily and said unhappily, "So what if I did? Young Master Tianqing is not only strong, but his appearance and temperament are also first-rate. His character is as gentle as jade. He is definitely one of the most elegant young masters in the world. He is a good match that countless girls yearn for even in their dreams. Even if I don't like a peerless genius like him, could it be that I like someone like you?" Xiao Chen's face immediately turned red, but he was speechless. He glanced at Xiao Linger and could only mutter softly, "Little Sister Ling, I advise you not to overthink it. No matter how perfect that young master is, he is just a passerby. He has already gone far away. It is hard to say whether you will be able to see him again in this lifetime." Xiao Linger was immediately unhappy. She glared at him angrily and pretended to be fierce as she said, "Nonsense. If we are fated, we will definitely be able to meet again. I saw the direction that the two of them left in earlier. They were heading for our Xiao clan. Maybe they are going to the Xiao clan." "Haha." Xiao Chen curled his lips and said with a smile, "Aside from the Xiao clan's disciples, who else can enter the Xiao clan? Do you think that young master looks like a Xiao clan's disciple?" "You." Xiao Linger was almost choked to death by him. She angrily grabbed a bone and threw it at him. "Are you the only one who talks too much? Let's get to work." Seeing that she was quite angry, Xiao Chen immediately let out a hearty laugh. "Ha ha ha!" Soon, the two of them dug out the tailbone and eyeball of the cloud-spotted beast. After keeping the spoils of war, the two of them finally heaved a sigh of relief. They quickly entered the black flying ship and left at lightning speed. On the way back to the Xiao clan, the two of them were still discussing with anticipation in the flying ship. "Phew! We are finally done. We have to go back quickly and bring the materials to Third Grandpa so that he can help us refine the artifact. Linger, as long as we get the artifact, we have an 80% chance of passing the test and getting the top 2. Xiao Linger nodded and said with righteous indignation, "Humph! It's all Xiao Shui and Xiao Chong's fault. They are too sinister. They have been planning the Holy Fire Festival since last year. If they did not ask Third Grandpa to refine the artifact, why would we need to take the risk to search for the materials and trouble Third Grandpa to refine the artifact for us?" Xiao Chen nodded in agreement and said, "That's right. Those fellows are guilty and know that they are not our match. So, they came up with such a plan. If everyone does not use the artifact and participates in the test with their own strength, I will definitely defeat all of them." Xiao Linger thought for a while and revealed a worried expression. She said, "Xiao Chen, I heard from my father that Third Grandpa's health is not very good. Many years ago, he suffered from an internal injury that will never heal. Over the past year, Third Grandpa has refined over 10 artifacts for our clan. His injury has already relapsed and his situation is very bad. I am really worried that after we find the materials, Third Grandpa will not be able to refine the artifact for us. However, I am more worried about Third Grandpa's injury." Xiao Chen was silent for a moment before he sighed with a complicated tone. "I hope Third Grandpa is fine. Otherwise, our wish of over 10 years will go down the drain." Unknowingly, a night passed. On the morning of the second day, the black flying ship flew continuously for 80,000 miles and finally arrived in the sky above a huge black quagmire. In the middle of this black quagmire with a circumference of 10,000 miles, there were 2 adjacent mounds. They were covered in lush shrubs and forests. These 2 black quagmires were the entrances to the Xiao clan's territory. They were called the Gemini Islands. When the black flying ship arrived in the sky above the Gemini Islands, Xiao Chen and Xiao Linger flew out. The two of them were about to land on the mound and take out their tokens to open the entrance. Suddenly, they saw a dazzling white light in the sky between the Gemini Islands. It condensed into a wide door of light. Chapter 1162. When Xiao Chen and Xiao Ling saw the 2 figures, they were stunned. The 2 of them revealed an expression of disbelief. Xiao Chen even rubbed his eyes as if he had seen a ghost. After a long time, the door of white light disappeared. Only then did the two of them come back to their senses. The two of them looked at each other in dismay. Their expressions were very strange. Xueqi frowned and asked in a complicated tone, "Little sister Ling, did I see wrongly? Are they really those two people?" "Yes, yes." Xiao Ling nodded repeatedly. Her eyes flickered with excitement as she waved her little fists excitedly. "Great. I really hit the nail on the head. Young Master Tianqing really came to the Xiao clan. I didn't expect that we would be able to meet again so soon." Xueqi didn't know whether to laugh or cry as he looked at her. He teased, "Little sister Ling, is your mouth blessed? How could you be right about such things? However, I am thinking, who exactly are they? It is impossible for outsiders to enter the Xiao clan. Could they really be disciples of the Xiao clan?" Xiao Ling's imagination ran wild. She suddenly thought of something and said, "Our Xiao clan has existed for more than 1,000 years. We have already spread our branches and leaves and developed very strong. Perhaps their elders were once disciples of the Xiao clan and left for the Central Province continent a few hundred years ago. Now that a few hundred years have passed, a peerless genius appeared among their juniors. Therefore, they wanted to return to the Xiao clan to pay respects to the old ancestor." Xueqi originally felt that it was very absurd. However, after thinking carefully, he nodded in agreement and said, "Yes, that is very possible. Little sister Ling, you are still the smart one. Don't be in a daze. Let's go back quickly and find out who they are." Xiao Ling grabbed his arm and impatiently flew to the Twin Islands to activate the formation door of light. The two of them took out their identity tokens and executed the Xiao clan's formation techniques. Soon, they activated the barrier formation. After a while, a dazzling white light lit up in the middle of the Twin Islands and condensed into a wide door of light. The two of them quickly entered the door of light and disappeared with a whoosh. Ji Tianqing and Xiao Han flew side by side in the sky. They were not very fast. As they hurried, they admired the scenery around them. On the ground, there was a vast grassland that stretched as far as the eye could see. The grass was waist-high, and there were many small trees with flowers and fruits in the grass. 100 miles ahead was a majestic mountain range that stretched for nearly 1,000 miles. It was like a gray dragon lying on the ground. The sky was blue, and there were a few scattered white clouds floating in the sky. It was extremely tranquil. The heaven and earth spirit qi in the air was extremely dense, even condensing into patches of colorful clouds and thin mist, sprinkling down tiny drops of spirit liquid. While they were flying, Ji Tianqing couldn't help but exclaim in admiration, "I really didn't expect that in the depths of the barren and desolate great swamp of the southern wasteland, there would be such an otherworldly paradise with abundant natural powers." It was no wonder that the Xiao clan was able to flourish and produce so many elites. The choice and decision of the Xiao clan's patriarch was indeed bold and wise. Only in this way can a clan continue for 1,000 years without declining, and instead become more and more prosperous. Xiao Han slightly nodded and said with a smile, "Young Master Ji is overpraising me. This grotto heaven in the great swamp of the southern wasteland is indeed a paradise. But compared to the many wonders of the central state, it's not worth mentioning. As for our Xiao clan's patriarch, he indeed has great wisdom and perseverance. I also deeply admire him for this. If the Xiao clan were to emerge and compete with the three great ancient clans, it might be possible for the Xiao clan to become the fourth great ancient clan. However, the Xiao clan's patriarch once said that everything in the world follows the heavenly Tao. When things reach an extreme, they will move in the opposite direction. If the Xiao clan were to participate in worldly affairs and fight for power, it's very likely that it would be destroyed in advance. That Duanmu Shi and the Murong clan are examples. They prospered for 1,000 years. Now, one has perished, and the other is declining. Thinking of this, the wisest choice for the Xiao clan to live in seclusion in the great swamp of the southern wasteland. Unknowingly, the two had already flown 100 miles and arrived in the sky above the majestic mountain range. Ji Tianqing looked down at the mountain range below. He saw countless houses and palaces built on the mountain peak, forming many huge manors. In each manor, there were ancient-style palaces built. There were many guards and martial artists moving about. Behind the mountain range, there was a vast grassland. In the middle of the grassland, there were a few clear lakes that were as calm as mirrors. The surface of the lakes sparkled. On the grassland around the lakes, there were all kinds of spirit beasts. There were white cranes, wind birds, flame rhinoceroses, golden-winged apes, and so on. It was obvious that the houses on the mountain peak that stretched for dozens of miles were where the Xiao clan lived, and the grassland behind the mountain range was where the Xiao clan reared their spirit beasts. Ji Tianqing roughly estimated that the manors on the mountain peak could house at least 5,000 to 6,000 people. It was obvious that the Xiao clan was indeed a prosperous ancient clan. They had a very prosperous population. Young Master Ji, we have arrived. Xiao Han stopped flying and landed on a huge manor on the mountain peak. That is Tingfeng Garden. It's also where my third uncle lives. In the past 100 years, I have only returned a few times. But every time, I stayed in third uncle's Tingfeng Garden. As they spoke, the two landed at the entrance of Tingfeng Garden. At the wide and solemn entrance, there were 6 gods in armor standing guard. They looked solemn and serious. After seeing Ji Tianqing and Xiao Han, one of the guards hurriedly came forward to greet them. He bowed respectfully and asked, "Elder, may I know which branch you are from? Who are you looking for in Tingfeng Garden?" Xiao Han took out an identity token and said solemnly, "I am from the 3rd branch, Xiao Han. I am here to visit the 3rd elder." Xiao Han? The guard was stunned for a moment. Then, he revealed a look of admiration and quickly bowed. "You are young Master Han from our 3rd branch? The divine general who guards the Eastern Sea?" The guards were all excited, and their eyes were filled with disbelief. Obviously, they had heard of Xiao Han's reputation but had never seen him in person. Xiao Han nodded slightly and put away the token. He stepped through the entrance and entered Tingfeng Garden. As he walked into the manor, he did not forget to explain to Ji Tianqing, "The people who live here are all descendants of the Xiao clan. Even if they are strangers, they are still related by blood. Therefore, when people get to know each other, they will call themselves the descendants of so-and-so to distinguish them. There are many people in the Xiao clan. Other than the ancestor and grand elder, the 9 elders are usually in charge of the clan's affairs. My father and the 3rd elder are cousins. The 3rd elder is my uncle. Therefore, I am a descendant of the 3rd branch. Ever since my parents passed away, 3rd uncle has been taking care of me and teaching me cultivation. 3rd uncle is best at refining weapons. He is in charge of the clan's spiritual treasure hall. He is in charge of refining treasures for the clan. Unfortunately, 3rd uncle's health has always been poor. He has hidden injuries that are difficult to heal. I have been worried but have not had the time to visit him. I am ashamed to say that." Chapter 1163. After a while, Ji Tianqing followed Xiao Han into the main hall of Tingfeng Garden. The guard went to report the news, and the two of them sat down in the main hall to drink tea and wait patiently. Not long after, the guard returned with a white-haired old man in a white robe. The old man was 6 feet tall, and his body was a little stooped. He held a walking stick in his hand, and his footsteps were a little unsteady. His face was withered and aged, and he looked like he had one foot in the grave and was on the verge of death. His weathered face was full of wrinkles, and his sunken eyes were a little dim. The aura of his magic power was also faintly discernible and very dim. Ji Tianqing could see that this old man was originally a transcendent expert in the spirit refinement realm. However, the old man was already old, and his body was plagued with internal injuries and hidden illnesses. His vitality was withered, and his soul power was weak. He did not have much time left. Seeing the old man in this state, Xiao Han immediately stood up with an expression of disbelief, and called out in a worried tone, "Third uncle, your injuries. Did they relapse?" As he spoke, he quickly went up and helped the white-haired old man to the main seat. The white-haired old man was the 3rd elder. After he slowly sat down, his withered face squeezed out a smile, and he looked kindly at Xiao Han. He nodded and said, "Xiao Han, you're finally back. I haven't seen you for more than 20 years, and you haven't changed at all. Seeing that you're getting better and better, this old man is relieved." Cough, cough, cough. As he spoke, the 3rd elder coughed violently. He used a handkerchief to cover his mouth, and a dark red bloodstain could be seen on the white handkerchief. It was a shocking sight. Xiao Han became more and more worried and hurriedly asked, "Third uncle, you've been recuperating in the clan all this time. Why did your injuries relapse and worsen? Did something happen?" The 3rd elder forced out a kind smile and waved his hand. "Nothing happened, it's just that I'm old and weak, and I can't take it anymore. Before he could finish, the guard beside him couldn't help but mutter, Third Elder's body isn't good to begin with, and when the clan needs a set of 6 directions magic treasure, Third Elder can only work hard to refine it, and because of this, his vitality is greatly damaged. Yet, those young masters and young ladies keep begging Third Elder to refine magic treasures for them so that they can get a good ranking in the Holy Fire Festival examination. This guard was the captain of the Tingfeng Gardens Guards and a trusted aide of the Third Elder. Of course, he knew the real reason. He was very clear about the Third Elder's injuries and situation. He was worried and angry, so he couldn't help but say it. The moment Xiao Han heard, he immediately frowned and said with a face full of anger, "This bunch of little brats are seriously too outrageous." In order to fight for a chance to leave the Xiao clan, he actually came up with such a method. No wonder Third Uncle's injuries worsened. What are the names of those brats? I'll go and settle the score with their elders. The guard quickly replied, "There's young Master Xiao Chong from the 2nd branch and young Miss Xiao Xue from the 5th branch." Without waiting for him to finish, the Third Elder raised his hand and interrupted him. "Shut up. The younger generation of disciples are working hard to cultivate. Isn't it to see the outside world? These little brats are all very outstanding. How can I bear to reject them? Xiao Han, don't pursue this matter anymore. Let them be." "Third Uncle. But your body." Xiao Han was still angry and refused to give up. The Third Elder lightly shook his head and said, "Let's not talk about this matter anymore. Xiao Han, you haven't introduced this person beside you to me. This is..." As he spoke, he turned his head to look at Ji Tianqing and a kind smile appeared on his old face. Xiao Han quickly introduced, "Third Uncle, this is the young Master Ji that I mentioned in the letter. The Emperor's most valued Tianqin region lord and the most outstanding prince in the monarch's mansion." Ji Tianqing cupped his hands and bowed to the Third Elder. He said, "Junior Ji Tianqing greets Third Elder." The Third Elder's eyes instantly lit up. He nodded happily and said, "Good. As expected of the #1 genius of the human race. What a heroic and extraordinary genius." Ji Tianqing smiled kindly and said modestly, "Third Elder is too kind." The Third Elder leaned on his walking stick and said earnestly to Xiao Han, "Xiao Han, although everyone knows young Master Ji's identity, you can't mention it to anyone else in the Xiao clan. Regarding the matter of meeting the old ancestor, the other clan elders were against it. I tried my best to get everyone's agreement and allowed you to meet the old ancestor." Xiao Han nodded to show that he understood. He said, "Thank you, Third Uncle. We've troubled you." The Third Elder waved his hand and said, "However, the old ancestor will only meet you after the Holy Fire Festival. For the next few days, you can stay in the Tingfeng Garden and have a good rest." After that, the Third Elder ordered the guard beside him, "Bring them to the guest room." Xiao Han could only bow and take his leave. He brought Ji Tianqing out of the hall and followed the guard to the guest room in the side courtyard. After Xiao Han and Ji Tianqing left, the Third Elder couldn't help but cough a few times. His dry face became even more sallow. At this moment, another guard rushed to the entrance of the hall and reported respectfully, "Third Elder, young Master Chen and young Miss Ling have returned. They are outside the hall and are asking to see you." When the Third Elder heard this, he quickly wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and said calmly, "Let them in." That guard turned and left. Soon, he brought a young man and a young woman into the hall. This young man and woman were Xiao Chen and Xiao Ling. After the two entered the hall, they stood in front of the Third Elder and bowed obediently with a smile on their faces. Chen greets Third Elder. Ling greets Third Grandpa. The Third Elder looked at the two of them kindly and nodded slightly. He said with a gratified tone, "The two of you are finally back. Fortunately, you are safe and sound. Did you find the cloud-spotted beast?" Hearing this, Xiao Ling's expression changed. She asked subconsciously, "Third Grandpa, how did you know that we went to find the cloud-spotted beast?" The Third Elder stroked his white beard and said with a smile, "Do you think I don't know what you are thinking? Those little fellows came to me to refine magic treasures. How could you sit still? 2 days ago, I knew that the two of you went out, so I asked the guard to ask around. Naturally, I found out everything. The cloud-spotted beast is a powerful demonic beast with the strength of a soul refinement realm cultivator. The two of you were able to return safely. Could it be that you didn't even find the cloud-spotted beast?" Xiao Chen said with excitement and anticipation, "Third Elder, we have already." Xiao Ling glared at him when he was halfway through his words. Then, she pretended to be disappointed and nodded. She said to the third elder, "Third grandpa, you guessed right again. The cloud-spotted beast is so powerful. How could we find it so easily?" Chapter 1164. Xiao Ling's words did not arouse the third elder's suspicion. In his opinion, this was a reasonable thing. He nodded slightly and said with a smile, "With your strength, it is indeed impossible to kill the cloud-spot beast and obtain the refining materials. Sai, you two are too sensible. You are not like the little fellows in the other branches, who are begging their elders to help them gather materials. Unfortunately, without the corresponding materials, I cannot refine treasures for you. The two of you will have to be extra careful during the Holy Fire Festival." Xiao Chen was startled and could not help but reveal the truth. However, Xiao Ling glared at him again and quickly changed the topic. She asked the third elder, "Third grandpa Ling, came to visit you today to ask about something. When we came back earlier, we saw two unfamiliar men, one old and one young, enter our Xiao clan. The middle-aged man was wearing a purple robe and the young man was wearing a white robe. They were very handsome. Third grandpa, who are they? Why have Ling never seen them before?" The third elder's old face immediately revealed a gratified and proud expression. He nodded and said, "The two people you are talking about, I just met them. They are now living in Tingfeng Garden. The man in the purple robe is your uncle, your father's cousin. You should have heard of his name. He is Xiao Han, the pride of our third branch and the entire Xiao clan." "Xiao Han?" Xiao Chen's eyes widened, revealing a gaze full of worship and excitement. He said with a trembling voice, "The divine general of the Eastern Forest, Uncle Xiao Han, who guards the Eastern Sea border. He actually came back? That's great. I have heard of his legend since I was young and have always admired him. I hope that when I grow up, I can bring glory to my ancestors and guard the continent." Xiao Ling was also very excited and pleasantly surprised. She could not help but ask, "Oh my God, he is actually Uncle Xiao Han. I did not expect to see the divine general of the Eastern Forest." "That's right, third grandpa. Where is the young man beside Uncle Xiao Han? Who is he?" The third elder smiled and nodded. "That is Xiao Han's nephew, Tianqing. He is a genius 10 times more outstanding than Xiao Han." "It's really him." Xiao Ling was so excited that her eyes sparkled. She couldn't help but clench her little fists and think to herself with joy, "That's great. He's in Tingfeng Garden, and I'll be able to see him soon. Humph, Xiao Tianqing, I will definitely find you and get to know you again." The third elder saw their reactions and guessed their thoughts. He reminded them in a serious tone, "Xiao Han is returning to the Xiao clan this time to bring the top 2 disciples with him. The disciples who obtained the top 2 positions would serve under Xiao Han and receive his promotion and care. The two of you have to work harder and strive to be in the top 2 to gain Xiao Han's favor." However, they had just returned and needed a good rest. "If you want to see him, you'll have to wait until tomorrow." Xiao Linger hurriedly nodded. "Yes, third grandpa, don't worry. We'll surely not be rash and abrupt." Xiao Chen suppressed the excitement in his heart and nodded repeatedly. After that, the two of them bowed to the third elder and left the hall. After walking out of Tingfeng Garden, the two of them chatted as they walked. Xiao Chen couldn't help but ask Sister Ling, "Why didn't you let me tell the third elder the truth just now?" Xiao Ling glared at him and said unhappily, "Are you stupid? Didn't you see that third grandpa's injuries have worsened and his complexion is even worse? Third grandpa refined the 6 harmonies magic treasure for the clan, and also refined magic treasures for Xiao Shui and the rest. His vitality has been greatly damaged and his internal injuries have flared up. How can we cause trouble for third grandpa and let him refine magic treasures and worsen his injuries?" Xiao Chen frowned and said with a heart full of worry, "I also understand this logic. However, Xiao Shui and Xiao Chong both have magic treasures and we don't. When the time comes, we'll be at a disadvantage in the examination. If we can't obtain the top 2 positions, we'll lose the great opportunity to follow Uncle Xiao Han." Xiao Ling thought for a while and her quick-witted eyes turned. She immediately had an idea. "Xiao Chen, how about this? Tomorrow, we'll go pay a visit to Uncle Xiao Han and sound him out. If there's a chance, we'll hint to Uncle Xiao Han and let him set the rules of the examination. We're not allowed to borrow external forces or use magic treasures." Xiao Chen's eyes immediately lit up and he nodded repeatedly. Hey, this idea is not bad. This is very fair to everyone. Just as he finished speaking, a disdainful sneer came from the front. Hee hee. Only the weak have extravagant hopes for fairness. Suddenly hearing these words, Xiao Chen and Xiao Ling stopped in their tracks and raised their heads to look forward. They saw that on the blue stone road in front of them, there were 3 young men and women walking towards them. The young woman walking in the middle wore a blue dress and held a silver sword in her left hand. This woman was tall and had a cold temperament. However, her face was slightly ordinary and could only be considered average. She was the genius of the 5th branch, Xiao Shui. Following on her left and right were 2 handsome young men. The young man on the left wore a snow-white robe. His face was sickly pale and his eyes were gloomy and cold. He was the genius of the 2nd branch, Xiao Chong. He was also the one who sneered earlier. The young man on the right wore a fiery red robe. He was the genius of the 4th branch, Xiao Ku. He was tall and sturdy with a dignified appearance. His entire body emitted a valiant and wild aura. These 3 young men and women, in addition to Xiao Chen and Xiao Ling were the most outstanding geniuses of the Xiao clan's younger generation. Unfortunately, these 5 geniuses were divided into 2 factions. They were hostile and opposed to each other. They had to compete in everything. Xiao Chong's words made Xiao Chen and Xiao Ling furious. Their eyes turned cold. Xiao Chen shouted in a deep voice, "Xiao Chong, you dare to be arrogant in front of me with your little strength?" Xiao Chong leisurely stroked his collar. The corner of his mouth curled into a sinister sneer. He nodded and said, "That's right. I alone am enough to crush you. You're too arrogant. I must teach you a lesson today." Xiao Chen could not hold back his anger. He clenched his fist in anger and was about to attack. However, a light flashed in Xiao Chong's palm, and a crescent-shaped silver saber appeared. As Xiao Chong poured quintessence into the saber immediately expanded by 1,000 times. It turned into a huge saber that was 10 meters long and gave off a dazzling silver light. A strong wind swept up on the blue stone path. The berserk saber chi was pointed at Xiao Chen. "Xiao Chen, you can't even take one saber strike from me. Do you believe me?" Xiao Chen was immediately driven mad. However, due to the might of the silver saber, he did not dare to attack Xiao Chong. Xiao Ling cursed angrily, "Xiao Chong, you shameless despicable person. Aren't you just relying on the might of your magic treasure?" Chapter 1165. Xiao Chen and Xiao Ling's true strength was definitely not weaker than Xiao Chong's. In fact, they were even slightly stronger. However, a soul-ranked enchanted treasure could increase Xiao Chong's combat prowess by 2 to 3 times, completely suppressing the 2 of them. This was what they were most dissatisfied with and angered them the most. Xiao Chong controlled the 10-meter-long silver breaking moon saber to hover above Xiao Chen's head, showing off his might. Xiao Chong revealed a cold smile and said proudly, "In our Xiao clan, only the old ancestor and the 3rd elder can refine soul-ranked enchanted treasures. In the entire Xiao clan, there are less than 50 soul-ranked enchanted treasures. However, the 3rd elder refined enchanted treasures for the 3 of us. What does this mean? It means that the 3 of us are outstanding enough to have soul-ranked enchanted treasures. As for the 2 of you, you can't even obtain the materials to refine enchanted treasures. You are even less qualified to get the 3rd elder to refine one for you." Xiao Chen could not stand Xiao Chong's proud appearance. He was so angry that he laughed. "Xiao Chong, can you be any more shameless? Didn't you get the materials to refine enchanted treasures with the help of your elders? With your strength and courage, you don't even have the courage to step into the forbidden land of the swamp." The red-robed Xiao Ku immediately grinned coldly. "Haha. Our parents and elders were able to obtain the materials to refine enchanted treasures because they were strong enough. This is also our capital. Who asked your parents and elders to be trash? They can't even obtain soul-ranked enchanted treasures. How can you blame us for this?" "Haha." After Xiao Ku finished speaking, he exchanged glances with Xiao Chong and laughed proudly. Xiao Chen and Xiao Ling were extremely enraged. Their bodies shone with quintessence as they roared and attacked. "Xiao Ku, you dare to insult my parents. You are seeking death. Xiao Chong, if you are still a man, put down the breaking moon saber and fight fairly." It looked like both sides were circulating their vast quintessence, about to execute their secret techniques to fight on the limestone path. Just at this moment, a dignified and angry shout came from the end of the path not far away. "Stop!" As that voice rang out, a purple-robed middle-aged man walked out with a white-robed youth. The two walked side by side as if they were taking a stroll in the manor, enjoying the scenery and chatting. The middle-aged man was tall and straight, with a dignified appearance. His expression was cold and solemn, and his eyes were surging with a frightening light. His entire body exuded a powerful aura of a superior. His eyes swept across the 5 young geniuses indifferently as he shouted in a deep voice, "As disciples of the same clan, how dare you fight against each other within the clan? What is this?" Xiao Chong, Xiao Ku, Xiao Chen, and the others immediately stopped and turned to look at the purple-robed man. When Xiao Chen and Xiao Ling clearly saw the face of the purple-robed man, the anger that filled their hearts completely dispersed, and they revealed an expression that was filled with excitement and excitement. The two of them looked at the purple-robed man with shining eyes. They bowed respectfully and called him uncle. Without a doubt, the purple-robed man was Xiao Han. Xiao Chen stared at Xiao Han without blinking. His eyes were filled with worship and reverence. Xiao Ling's gaze instead descended onto Ji Tianqing, who was beside Xiao Han, and she carefully sized him up. Although Xiao Chong, Xiao Ku and Xiao Xue did not recognize Xiao Han, they knew that he was an elder of the Xiao clan. The 3 of them stopped and withdrew their weapons and magic treasures. Xiao Chong glanced at Xiao Han and looked at Xiao Chen with contempt. He shouted in a low voice, "Xiao Chen, consider yourself lucky today. With an elder present, this young master will spare you this time. 3 days later, during the Holy Fire Festival's test, I will definitely defeat you in front of everyone and make you roll off the stage like a dog." After he finished speaking, he turned around and left with Xiao Ku and Xiao Xue, swaggering away. From the beginning to the end, they only glanced at Xiao Han and Ji Tianqing. They did not put the 2 of them in their eyes. Xiao Chen and Xiao Ling were unable to restrain their anger. They were so angry that they gnashed their teeth. However, they could only suppress their anger in their hearts and could not vent it out. When Xiao Han saw that the matter had calmed down, he no longer cared about the youths. He brought Ji Tianqing along the bluestone path and strolled around the manor. As the 2 of them strolled, Xiao Han gave Ji Tianqing an apologetic smile. "Tianqing, I've made a fool of myself earlier." Ji Tianqing shook his head and chuckled. "It's nothing. It's normal for youths to be competitive. Moreover, the Xiao clan has many branches and the relationships between the younger generations are distant. It's inevitable that there will be some grudges and conflicts." Xiao Han nodded with some regret. "That's right. This is the trouble of a big clan. Back then, the young geniuses of my generation were also not convinced of each other's strength and secretly schemed against each other. However, the young geniuses of my generation were more shrewd and would not shed all pretense of cordiality in public like them. Perhaps, the Xiao clan is getting worse with each generation and will gradually decline and wither away?" Ji Tianqing only smiled and did not say anything. The 2 of them walked half a circle around the manor. Just as they entered a garden, a guard quickly came over and reported to Xiao Han, "Lord Xiao Han, the great elder knows that you have returned and ordered me to send a message for you to meet him. He has something to discuss with you." Xiao Han was stunned for a moment. He turned to Ji Tianqing and said apologetically, "Tianqing, I'm sorry. I have to leave." "It's fine. Go ahead and do what you need to do. I'll walk around by myself." Ji Tianqing nodded, indicating that he did not need to take it to heart. Xiao Han bade farewell and followed the god to meet the great elder. Ji Tianqing strolled alone in the garden. He walked to the pavilion in the middle of the lake and sat down. He revealed a playful smile and seemed to be talking to himself. "Come out. There's no one else here." It was quiet all around. There was not a single person. He raised his eyebrows and stared at the rockery by the lake with playful eyes. He chuckled and said, "Miss, do you think that you can hide from the senses of a soul refinement expert?" As his voice fell, a graceful figure walked out from behind the rockery. It was a girl around the age of 20, wearing a yellow dress. She had a beautiful face and a cute temperament. It was Xiao Ling. She lowered her head timidly and pouted in a depressed mood. She took small steps towards the pavilion in the middle of the lake. After entering the pavilion, she stood in front of Ji Tianqing and bowed slightly. "Ling greets Big Brother Tianqing. Please forgive me, Big Brother Tianqing. Ling follows you without ill intentions. Ling just didn't expect that you were also a disciple of my clan. Ling, was excited and wanted to thank you in person. Ji Tianqing raised his eyebrows and looked at her playfully. He thought to himself, it seems that she has already found out about my identity and thinks that I'm Xiao Han's nephew? Xiao Ling was excited and nervous. Her eyes hid worry and anger. Her emotions were very complicated. She lowered her head slightly and held her dress with both hands. She looked like she wanted to say something but stopped. Chapter 1166. Ji Tianqing's attitude had always been casual, neither too close nor too far. He had the aloofness of a peerless genius, but also the dignity of an expert. To Xiao Ling, this had a special attraction. She couldn't help but want to get closer to Ji Tianqing and understand him better, especially when Ji Tianqing looked at her. His eyes were as clear as water, without any surprise or lust. This made her admire him even more, but also a little disappointed. After all, she was the publicly acknowledged #1 beauty in the Xiao clan, the most outstanding among the young women. Many young men in the Xiao clan admired her very much. Some were secretly in love with her, and some were openly pursuing and pestering her. Ji Tianqing saw that Xiao Ling was a little dazed, as if she was thinking about something. He asked, "Why did you follow me here?" Xiao Ling came back to her senses and answered subconsciously, "Of course, I want to thank you in person." Before she could finish, Ji Tianqing raised his hand and interrupted her. He asked again, "Other than that?" Xiao Ling was stunned for a moment, and her heartbeat inexplicably accelerated. She secretly looked at Ji Tianqing and asked tentatively, "Big brother Tianqing, can I sit down and chat with you?" Ji Tianqing thought for a moment and nodded. "Feel free." Xiao Ling was a little excited, and she sat down beside him with a face full of smiles. Ji Tianqing's easygoing and approachable made her feel relaxed and no longer nervous. She turned her head to look at Ji Tianqing and asked, "Big brother Tianqing, I heard that you are Uncle Xiao Han's nephew, but I have never seen you before. You didn't grow up in the Xiao clan, right?" "Of course not." Xiao Ling's eyes flickered with quick-wittedness. She asked, "Then can you tell me about the outside world? What's it like?" The outside world. Ji Tianqing paused for a moment and smiled. "It's very exciting and very complicated." After saying that, he looked at Xiao Ling. "You seem to yearn for the outside world?" "Of course." Xiao Ling nodded without hesitation and said, "It is not just me. Most of the Xiao clan disciples are not willing to stay here. They all want to go out and adventure. Men wanted to roam the world and establish their careers. They wanted to become a great hero like Uncle Xiao Han, a peerless expert. As for me, I just want to see the scenery outside, make more friends, and find the perfect lover in my heart." Ji Tianqing was stunned for a moment. He didn't know whether to laugh or cry as he said, "Miss Ling, it's not good for you to be so straightforward, right? Girls should be more reserved." Xiao Ling was also slightly embarrassed as she asked with a slightly red face, "Big brother Tianqing, do you think that I'm a little bold and unrestrained?" "That's not it," Ji Tianqing shook his head and said calmly. "You're just a simple and straightforward person." Xiao Linger nodded in agreement and said, "Third grandpa often says this as well. He even says that if I go outside, I'll surely suffer a loss. Unfortunately, I may not have the chance to see the outside world. My wish of more than 10 years is about to be shattered." Her tone was somewhat gloomy and sad. Her tone was somewhat helpless and angry. Ji Tianqing tilted his head and looked at her. "What's wrong? Are you worried that you won't be able to pass the exam and get into the top 2? So you also know about the Holy Fire Festival's exam?" Xiao Ling blinked her big eyes and said with a somewhat resentful tone, "Big brother Tianqing, actually, if everyone takes the exam fairly, I still have the confidence to get into the top 2. After all, my talent and strength can be ranked in the top 3 among the younger generation. However, Xiao Chong and Xiao Xue, those 3 fellows just now, they actually used magical artifacts to cheat." Speaking up to here, her tone was full of helplessness as she muttered, "You also know that a low-grade soul-level magical artifact is several times stronger than a magical artifact. Xiao Chen and I are only slightly stronger than Xiao Chong and the others. How could we possibly block the power of a magical artifact?" Ji Tianqing immediately understood her worry and anger. He asked despite knowing the answer, "Didn't you guys get the tailbone and eyeball of the cloud-spotted beast? Why didn't you let Third Elder refine a magical artifact for you?" Xiao Ling shook her head and said with a heart full of worry, Third grandfather's internal injuries have relapsed. His condition is very bad. He is already in so much pain. How could we cause him more trouble? Ji Tianqing asked back. So, you would rather accept the result of failing the exam than aggravate third elder's injuries? Xiao Ling nodded and said, Xiao Chong and Xiao Xue aren't from the third branch. Of course, they wouldn't care about third grandfather's condition. However, we can't do that. Hearing her say this, Ji Tianqing couldn't help but look at her again. A hint of admiration flashed through his eyes. Although this matter had nothing to do with him, the kindness and care of human nature was always worthy of praise and admiration. At this moment, the sound of footsteps suddenly came from the cobblestone path beside the lake. Two handsome young men walked out side by side. As they walked, they whispered to each other. One of them was wearing a white robe, and the other was wearing a red robe. They were Xiao Chong and Xiao Ku. When Ji Tianqing raised his head and looked at them, they also stopped and saw Ji Tianqing and Xiao Ling in the pavilion. Xiao Chong was startled. His pale face immediately revealed a disdainful sneer. He said with a disdainful tone, "Oh my, everyone thought that the number one beauty Xiao Ling was pure as ice and pure as jade. I didn't expect that Xiao Ling also had feelings for love." She met her lover in broad daylight and hid here to whisper sweet nothings. TSK TSK TSK. Xiao Chong's eyes were very sinister, and his tone was also very strange. It was unbearable. Xiao Ke glanced at Ji Tianqing and curled his lips. Xiao Ling there are so many young talents in the Xiao clan's main branch. For example, Xiao Chong and I, but you didn't choose any of them. In the end, you chose a branch disciple from outside. Aren't you inserting a flower into cow dung? After saying that, he even cast a contemptuous look at Ji Tianqing and shouted coldly, "Brat, this is the Xiao clan. It's already an honor for you, a branch disciple, to be able to return here. You better behave yourself and don't have any improper thoughts. Otherwise, I'll throw you out." How could Xiao Ling tolerate the two of them slandering her like this? She stood up and scolded with a frosty face, "Xiao Chong, Xiao Ku, you two bastards, don't slander me and sully my innocence." Xiao Chong curled his lips and said with a strange tone, "Little sister Ling, don't exaggerate. I didn't even touch the corner of your clothes. How can I sully your innocence? Could it be that I use my eyes? You, Xiao Chong, you're courting death." Xiao Ling was so furious that she almost went berserk. Dazzling true essence surged all over her body, and she was about to make a move immediately. As a pure girl, how could she be humiliated and molested in front of her like this? Chapter 1167. A bright light flashed in Xiao Ling palm, and a dark golden sword appeared. She held the scabbard in her left hand and the sword hilt in her right hand. She was about to draw the sword in a fit of anger. At this moment, a warm and powerful palm pressed on the sword hilt and pushed the sword back into the scabbard. Xiao Ling turned her head and saw Ji Tianqing looking at her calmly. His eyes were as calm as water. She didn't know why, but when she saw Ji Tianqing's deep eyes, the anger and murderous intent in her heart instantly dissipated, and she calmed down. Ji Tianqing was still sitting on the stone bench in the pavilion. He glanced at Xiao Chong and Xiao Ku indifferently and asked Xiao Ling, "If I didn't guess wrongly, these two clowns pursued you before, but you rejected them, right?" Xiao Ling was startled for a moment. She didn't understand what he meant, so she answered truthfully, "That's right. I would rather die than agree to such disgusting and despicable people like them." Ji Tianqing revealed an expression of deep understanding. He nodded and said, "That's indeed the case. Such small flies don't even have the qualifications to carry your shoes." Xiao Ling saw his serious face and couldn't help but blink her big clear eyes. Her heartbeat suddenly sped up, and she felt an inexplicable happiness and joy. Xiao Chong and Xiao Ku were so angry that their noses were crooked. They were so humiliated that their faces and ears turned red. Both of them flew into a rage. They glared fiercely at Ji Tianqing and scolded, "Brat, who are you? How dare you insult this young master? Wild brat from the outside, how dare you be so presumptuous in our Xiao clan? You're dead meat." No matter how the two of them scolded, Ji Tianqing's expression remained calm. His eyes were indifferent, as if he was looking at two ants. After the two of them scolded for a while and stopped to catch their breath, he said in a pitiful tone, "Two ant-like trash. You've become so deranged after being poked in your sore spot. How sad. Xiao Chong's face turned red with anger. He pointed at Ji Tianqing and shouted, "Brat, don't talk nonsense with this young master. If you have the guts, come to the arena with this young master. Let's fight in front of everyone. You're pissing me off. I'm going to break all 5 of your legs and make sure you don't have any descendants." Xueqi also hooked his finger at him and said provocatively, "Kid, if you're still a man, then fight with me." Xiao Ling couldn't bear to see the two of them being so arrogant. She couldn't bear to see the two of them profaning the Prince Charming in her heart. Instantly, killing intent surged violently from her entire body. Ji Tianqing was still as calm as ever, without the slightest hint of anger. Xiao Ling saw his reaction and asked doubtfully, "Big brother Tianqing, those 2 bastards provoked you like this. Could it be that you're not angry?" Ji Tianqing glanced at Xiao Chong and Xueqi with disdain. He said indifferently, "There are too many people who want to challenge me. If there aren't 100,000, there are at least 80,000. If I paid attention to every single one of them, wouldn't I be unable to do anything? Moreover, these 2 reptiles are not qualified for me to make a move. It's their honor for me to look at them." Ji Tianqing's expression was very serious. His tone was very certain and confident. It was as if he was stating a fact, a truth. Xiao Chong and Xueqi were so angry that they almost vomited blood. They were so angry that they almost went berserk. Xiao Ling felt that it made sense. She nodded in agreement and said, "I see. Looks like Big Brother Tianqing usually encounters this kind of trouble, right?" "Yes." Ji Tianqing nodded calmly and said, "After all, the entire continent knows of my reputation and deeds. Who knows how many young geniuses want to challenge me and make a name for themselves in one battle." Xiao Ling's eyes were filled with longing. She clenched her pink little fists excitedly. She couldn't imagine how awe-inspiring it would be for someone as famous as Ji Tianqing to be the center of attention wherever he went. This also made her look forward to the outside world even more. Xiao Chong and Xueqi were so angry that they laughed. Their faces were distorted. "Ha ha ha. I've lived for so long, but this is the first time I've seen such a shameless person. Kid, your ability to boast and be shameless is indeed the best in the world. It's really unprecedented and will never be surpassed." Xiao Ling, so this is the person you've chosen. I'm dying of laughter. The 2 of you will definitely become the shame of the Xiao clan. Just as the 2 of them were cursing angrily, a purple figure walked over from the small path. He arrived at the lakeside with 1 step. The newcomer was dressed in a purple robe. His figure was tall and straight, and his entire body emitted the aura of a superior, powerful and noble. He was Xiao Han. Of course, when he rushed over, he just happened to hear Xiao Chong and Xueqi's angry curses. "Shut up!" Xiao Han stopped and stared at the 2 of them coldly. He shouted in a dignified tone. Xiao Chong and Xueqi immediately turned around and looked at Xiao Han with unfriendly eyes. Because the other party was an elder and had decent strength, the 2 of them didn't say anything. However, the sneer and ridicule in their eyes couldn't be concealed. Xiao Han didn't say anything unnecessary. He pointed at Ji Tianqing in the pavilion and shouted angrily at the 2 of them. "Apologize to Tianqing." "What?" The 2 of them were stunned. They sneered and questioned Xiao Han with disdain. "Who are you? We're not from the 3rd branch. Who are you to tell us what to do? Why should we apologize to him? That kid insulted us. We're waiting for him to apologize to us." Xiao Han furrowed his brows as a cold light flashed in his eyes. In the next instant, he raised his right hand, and his sleeves fluttered as he slapped out. Slap. The invisible slap landed on Xiao Chong and Xueqi's cheeks from 10 steps away. It made a crisp sound. Xiao Chong and Xueqi were both at Sky Origin Stage Level 5. However, they couldn't see how Xiao Han attacked. The left side of their faces swelled up like a pig's head. It was red and filled with blood. The 2 of them were stunned. They stared at Xiao Han in disbelief and shouted angrily, "How dare you hit me? You're from the 3rd branch. How dare you punish us? I'll go to the law hall and ask for an explanation. My father is Xiao Zhan from the 2nd branch. How dare you hit me? My father will never forgive you." The 2 of them didn't dare to attack Xiao Han. They covered their swollen cheeks and stared at Xiao Han fiercely. Xiao Han didn't say anything. He raised his right hand again and slapped them. Slap. This time, The two of them were prepared. They tried their best to back off, but they were still slapped on the right side of their faces. The right side of their faces swelled up like a pig's head. It was covered with dark red blood. The two of them were dizzy from the slap. They staggered and fell to the ground. They looked extremely embarrassed. The two of them were scared. They hurriedly got up from the ground and helped each other to leave the lake. Before they ran out of the garden, the two of them didn't forget to threaten Xiao Han. "Just you wait. We'll remember this. The law elder will come to you soon. Just you wait." Xiao Han coldly shouted. "Go and find the law elder. Also, tell Xiao Zhan to come find me and ask for punishment." Chapter 1168. Xiao Chong and Xiao Ku were stunned. Even when they heard Xiao Han's name, they didn't take it to heart. The two of them endured the pain and humiliation as they stumbled out of the garden and left Tingfeng Garden. Xiao Han flicked his sleeves and gradually restrained his anger. He walked into the pavilion in the middle of the lake. Xiao Ling saw him and quickly stood up. She bowed obediently and said, "Ling greets uncle." Xiao Han didn't take it to heart. He just nodded and walked to Ji Tianxing. He said apologetically, "Tianxing, the first elder and I were discussing the Holy Fire Festival and delayed some time. I didn't expect that not long after I left, those two little bastards dared to humiliate you. I'm really sorry." Obviously, Xiao Han was worried that Xiao Chong and Xiao Ku would anger Ji Tianxing and cause him to harbor resentment. If he caused trouble in the Xiao clan, the entire Xiao clan wouldn't have peace. The Duanmu clan and Murong clan were examples. Xiao Han was very clear about Ji Tianxing's terrifying power. Fortunately, Ji Tianxing waved his hand and said calmly, "You don't have to take it to heart. Among the younger generation, the one who can humiliate me hasn't been born yet." Xiao Han was stunned for a moment. He smiled and nodded. "That's right. In this world, who has the right to humiliate you? Blame those two little bastards for being blind. They're really frogs at the bottom of a well. They actually dared to be so presumptuous. Tianxing, this matter is also because you're magnanimous and didn't lower yourself to their level." Xiao Ling stood at the side and stared at Xiao Han and Ji Tianxing with her big clear eyes. A hint of doubt flashed in her eyes. She was very smart. Of course, she could see that Xiao Han's attitude toward Ji Tianxing was very respectful. It didn't seem like a senior to a nephew. It was more like a friend of the same generation. This made her very confused. She couldn't understand the reason. Xiao Han secretly heaved a sigh of relief when he saw that Ji Tianxing didn't take it to heart. He sat down beside Ji Tianxing and asked doubtfully, "Tianxing, who is this lady? Why are you here?" Ji Tianxing chuckled. "Logically speaking, this lady is your niece. You should be more familiar with her than me, right? I was bored wandering around Tingfeng Garden alone, so I decided to chat with her when I saw her here." Xiao Han said awkwardly, "I haven't been back for more than 20 years. How would I know these juniors?" Xiao Ling was extremely quick-witted. She hurriedly bowed and explained, "Uncle Xiao Han, I'm called Xiao Ling. My father is your cousin, called Xiao Jianlong. You should remember, right?" Only then did Xiao Han come to a realization. Looking at Xiao Ling in disbelief, he said with a nod, "So, it's Yilong's daughter." Who would have thought that after not seeing him for more than 20 years, Yilong's daughter has already grown up and is still so beautiful? This brat must have married a beautiful wife. Xiao Ling nodded repeatedly and said with a face full of pride, "Uncle, you should also know my mother. She is Xiao Yingmin from the 9th branch." Xiao Han stroked his beard with a faint smile and nodded repeatedly, saying, "Of course I know. Back then, I cultivated with your parents. At that time, your father took great care of your mother, circling around her all day. I didn't think that the two of them really got married. Sigh, several decades have passed in a flash." Talking about the past, Xiao Han revealed a look of reminiscence, full of sighs and emotions. Ji Tianxing listened silently by the side, interjecting a sentence or two from time to time to adjust the atmosphere. Xiao Ling got familiar with Xiao Han very quickly, calling him uncle affectionately. Xiao Han was also rather fond of her and treated her like his own niece. Ji Tianxing saw that the time was ripe and said to Xiao Han, "All right, Miss Ling was still talking to me earlier, saying that she has something to ask of you. Now that you're all present, let Miss Ling tell you personally." Xiao Han nodded with a smile and asked, Ling, what is it? Feel free to say it. Xiao Ling was also stunned. She stared blankly at Ji Tianqing and thought to herself, when did I say these words to him? Ji Tianqing smiled at her and reminded her, Miss Ling, didn't you say just now that the Holy Fire Festival's assessment is unfair and that some people can borrow the power of Dharma treasures? Xiao Ling, suddenly understood and cast a grateful look at him. She nodded repeatedly and said, yes, that's it. She grabbed Xiao Han's arm and pleaded pitifully, Uncle, I heard that you're in charge of supervising this year's Holy Fire Festival's assessment, and you also have to guide the top 2 disciples in the assessment. I don't ask you to help me with anything, but I hope that you can change the assessment rules and prohibit everyone from using Dharma treasures. This will be fair to everyone. Xiao Han frowned and asked, Ling, the Holy Fire Festival is a tradition of the Xiao clan, and the assessment is also a rule set by the old ancestor. How can I have the authority to change it? Why don't you tell me what happened? Thus, Xiao Ling narrated the whole story of the matter in full detail. After Xiao Han finished listening, he frowned with a grave expression. No wonder the third elder's condition is so bad. This is really infuriating. But the third elder doesn't know that 2 of the 3 juniors he helped with heart are mischievous villains. After a moment of silence, he sighed with a heart full of worry and said, Ling, I can understand your feelings, but I can't do anything about changing the assessment rules. The third elder's body is already so bad, and he definitely can't help you refine Dharma treasures. How about this? I'll help you refine Dharma treasures. No, it's the Holy Fire Festival 3 days later. I can't make it in time even if I rush now. Xiao Ling immediately revealed a face full of disappointment and said with tears in her eyes, Uncle, you're the Donglin Divine General. Could it be that even you can't help us? Say. Xiao Han sighed deeply and was somewhat helpless. Ji Tianqing timely interrupted and reminded, Lord Divine General, you have so many soul tools and Dharma treasures. You can temporarily lend 2 to them. That won't do. Xiao Han and Xiao Ling rejected in unison. Xiao Ling pouted and said, if we do that, it's also cheating. The nature is even worse than Xiao Chong and Xiao Xue. Xiao Han also nodded and said, yes, the assessment rules are that we can't rely on external forces, including other people's Dharma treasures and spirit pets. Ji Tianqing nodded slightly, indicating that he understood. He suddenly thought of something and raised his eyebrows and asked, Lord Divine General, since the assessment rules can't be changed, then if Miss Ling wants to win, she must use Dharma treasures. Moreover, this Dharma treasure can only come from the third elder. Only this way can it be considered fair and not cause controversy, right? Xiao Han nodded and said, that's right, exactly so. However, you've also seen the third elder's body condition. Ji Tianqing revealed an unfathomable smile and said with a playful tone, if the third elder's injuries suddenly recover and he can recover his vitality tonight, then can he refine 2 Dharma treasures before the Holy Fire Festival? Xiao Han said with a certain tone, this isn't a problem. The third elder has studied refining for his entire life. It's not difficult to refine 2 low-grade soul-rank Dharma treasures within 3 days. However, even I'm helpless with the third elder's injuries. How can he suddenly recover? Chapter 1169. Ji Tianqing looked at Xiao Han and revealed a confident smile. Miracle? I'm the best at creating miracles. Xiao Han was stunned for a moment and looked at him in disbelief. Tianqing, can you cure third elder's injury? Xiao Ling was also shocked and looked at him expectantly. Ji Tianqing nodded and asked with a smile, General, have you heard of Miracle Dr. Bailey? Xiao Han didn't know the inside story and answered honestly, of course I have. Miracle Dr. Bailey is a famous miracle doctor in the continent. He has miraculous skills and can bring the dead back to life. Ji Tianqing smiled and said, there's something you might not know. I'm Miracle Dr. Bailey's disciple. Xiao Ling suddenly exclaimed and her clear eyes were filled with joy. That's great. Brother Tianqing is Miracle Dr. Bailey's disciple. He can definitely cure third grandfather. Xiao Han also came back to his senses and revealed a gratified expression. He smiled and said, Tianqing, if you can cure third elder, I and the disciples of the third branch will remember this kindness. Thank you so much. Ji Tianqing waved his hand and said, it's too early to talk about gratitude. Let's go take a look at third elder's injury first. After that, The three of them left the garden and returned to Ting Feng Garden. Ji Tianqing and Xiao Han went to see third elder to check on his injury. Xiao Ling was a junior and couldn't help much. She could only wait in the front yard and patiently wait for the results. Third elder knew Ji Tianqing's true identity and heard that he was Miracle Dr. Bailey's disciple. Naturally, he trusted him. In the secret cultivation room, he calmly accepted Ji Tianqing's examination. Moreover, he told Ji Tianqing the reason and process of his hidden injury in detail. 100 years ago, he was exploring the ancient ruins in the depths of the Great Swamp and encountered a few life and death crises. There were powerful arrays and traps in the ancient ruins. He accidentally triggered them and was severely injured and almost lost his life. In addition, he also encountered a powerful and special demonic beast. He was beaten to death and barely escaped. That demonic beast contained a strong poison that corroded his internal organs and meridians, almost turning him into a pool of blood. Ever since he escaped that disaster, he had been quietly recuperating for the past few decades to slowly alleviate his injury. However, the injury that year affected his internal organs and soul and was basically difficult to heal. Usually, he had to use more than half of his power to suppress his injury. In the past year, he had consumed too much of his energy and his old chi was damaged. Of course, his old injury. Moreover, the injury had relapsed, and the situation had become very bad. The third elder estimated that with the condition of his body, he would not live for more than 3 years. Hearing this, Xiao Han was immediately filled with worry. He asked Ji Tianqing, "Tianqing, are you confident in curing third elder?" Ji Tianqing thought about it seriously, then nodded and said, "I have 90% confidence." "That's great." Xiao Han secretly clenched his fist and excitedly praised. The third elder also felt that it was inconceivable. His old face was flushed with excitement. "Tianqing, can I really be saved?" Ji Tianqing nodded and smiled. "Third elder, you don't have to worry. Although your injury is troublesome, it is not an incurable disease. Please lie on the cold ice jade bed and enter a state of deep sleep. I have to start treating your injury as soon as possible." The third elder saw the hope of life. Of course, he was full of excitement and expectation. He lay on the cold ice jade bed according to his instructions. Xiao Han rubbed his hands excitedly and quickly asked, "Tianqing, do you need my help?" Ji Tianqing shook his head and said, "No need. You can wait outside the secret room. Don't let anyone disturb me." "Okay, don't worry." Xiao Han nodded and quickly left the secret room to guard outside the door. In the dark secret room, only Ji Tianqing and the third elder were left. The third elder had entered a state of deep sleep and isolated all his senses. This way, he wouldn't feel any pain when Ji Tianqing treated his injury. Ji Tianqing first used the secret technique of the Wood Emperor's umbrella to treat the third elder's injury. Then, he transferred boundless green wood magic power to the third elder and fed him a few soul-grade elixirs. After the third elder's injury was mostly healed, he used the Heaven Mending Pearl to remove the remaining poison in the third elder's body and repair his internal organs and soul. This process was very slow and would take a long time. But he had enough patience to treat the third elder's injury bit by bit. Unknowingly, 4 hours had passed and night had fallen. In the manor of the Shao clan's second branch, the lights were brightly lit. In an antique study, a middle-aged man in a purple robe was sitting. This man was tall and sturdy and had a dignified appearance. He had a mustache and exuded the aura of an expert. He was the son of the second branch's elder, Xiao Zhan, the next elder's successor. He was engrossed in reading a book when the study's door was opened. A young man with swollen cheeks like a pig's head walked into the study with weak steps. His entire body was wrapped in anger and resentment. "Father, you must avenge me." The young man was Xiao Chong. He walked quickly to Xiao Zhan and shouted angrily. His tone and eyes were filled with anger and resentment. Xiao Zhan put down the book in his hand and turned to look at Xiao Chong. He frowned when he saw Xiao Chong's miserable appearance. "Chong, what happened to you? Who beat you up like this?" Xiao Chong's eyes surged with cold light. He gritted his teeth and cursed. "It's the bastard from the third branch. He sided with Xiao Ling and Xiao Ling lover and beat me and Xiao Ku, bastard." Xiao Zhan slammed the table in anger and shouted angrily. "The third branch is too presumptuous. How dare they beat up my son? Chong, do you know that person's name? Tell me, I won't let him off." Xiao Chong thought for a moment and quickly replied, That guy is an elder from the third branch. I think he's called Xiao Han. What did you say? Xiao Zhan's eyes widened. He asked in a panicked tone, You said the person who beat you is called Xiao Han? That's right. It's that bastard. Xiao Chong didn't notice the change in his father's expression. He still cursed angrily, That bastard is too arrogant. He beat us up in front of Xiao Ling and her lover and even clamored for us to kneel down and apologize. He even said that he wants you to find him and apologize. This guy is really crazy. Who does he think he is? Xiao Zhan's expression changed drastically. He shouted in a deep voice, Shut up! You bastard, are you crazy? Xiao Chong raised his head in confusion and asked, Father, what's wrong with you? Did you take the wrong medicine? That bastard beat me up and humiliated you. Why are you scolding me? Xiao Zhan furiously raised his right hand and slapped Xiao Chong's face with a pop sound. Chapter 1170. Xiao Chong was slapped in the face and fell to the ground. His face was already swollen like a pig's head, and after being slapped by Xiao Zhan, it split open and started bleeding. He fell to the ground and covered his bleeding face with his hands, looking at Xiao Zhan in disbelief. You hit me. That bastard from the third branch hit me, and not only did you not avenge me, you hit me. You don't deserve to be my father. Xiao Chong was trembling with anger. He stared at Xiao Zhan with cold eyes and roared in a low voice. Xiao Zhan was so angry that he almost vomited blood. He stood up with a bang, and his whole body was filled with rage. He scolded in a low voice, Bastard, are you still so stubborn? Wake up for me and think carefully about the name Xiao Han. What do I have to think about? Xiao Chong stared back at him and roared even more furiously. Isn't he just a bastard from the third branch? Isn't he just living for a few more decades? You always brag about how powerful you are, but now that your son is being bullied, you don't even dare to fart. You only dare to hit me. I'm going to tell my mother, and I'm going to the law hall to ask the law elder to judge for me. As he spoke, Xiao Chong got up from the ground and was about to rush out of the study. Get back here. Xiao Zhan was so angry that his face turned purple. He waved his sleeves and pulled Xiao Chong back. He grabbed Xiao Chong's collar and shouted angrily, Xiao Chong, are you trying to get us killed? Calm down and think about who Xiao Han is. He's the pride of the Xiao clan, the pillar of the Xiao clan. Is he someone you and I can offend? The agitated Xiao Chong suddenly thought of something when he heard Xiao Zhan's reminder. Xiao Han. Xiao Han. Is he that Dong Lin divine general? Xiao Zhan shouted in a cold voice, Nonsense. Who else could it be? It's him? Xiao Chong was dumbfounded. He stood there with his mouth agape, and the anger in his heart disappeared. It was as if a bucket of cold water had been poured over his head. He felt cold from head to toe, and even his back was cold. Xiao Han was the pride of the Xiao clan. He was also a peerless expert that was worshipped by the younger generation. Most importantly, the top 2 scorers of the Holy Fire Festival would be brought out of the Xiao clan by Xiao Han to receive care and training. However, he had already made a mistake and had been slapped twice by Xiao Han. However, he still clamored at Xiao Han and refused to let him off. He even wanted to look for the law elder to reason things out. After such a thing had happened, what was Xiao Han's impression of him? Would he still support and nurture him? Thinking of this, Xiao Chong suddenly collapsed on the chair and murmured in a daze, This is impossible. How was this possible? How could there be such a coincidence? Why? He had not returned to the Xiao clan for decades. Why did he return today? He didn't know Xiao Linger at all, so why would he protect Xiao Linger? No, I can't accept this. Xiao Zhan also gradually calmed down. With a grave expression he said, Chong tell me everything that happened. Don't leave out anything. Xiao Chong was filled with fear. Of course, he did not dare to hide the truth, nor did he dare to exaggerate. He could only tell the truth. After he finished telling the whole story, Xiao Zhan heaved a sigh of relief. He nodded and said, Although you and Xiao Ku are at fault, there is still room for redemption. This is a grudge between you, Xiao Ku, Xiao Linger, and Xiao Tianqing. It is a matter of the younger generation. Fortunately, you did not directly clash with Xiao Han. Now, follow me to Tingfeng Garden and apologize to Xiao Han in person. Chong was stunned. He said in disbelief, "Father, are we really going to swallow this and apologize to Xiao Han? There are so many people in the clan watching. If we go and apologize, this matter will spread throughout the Xiao clan tomorrow. At that time, we will be the laughingstock of the entire clan. We will be ridiculed for life." Xiao Zhan glared at him angrily and scolded, "Bastard! Until now, do you still not understand the importance of this matter? Compared to the status and resources we already have, what is this little bit of face? Besides, how could it be considered shameful to offer a humble apology to Divine General Dong Lin? Not only us, who in the 9th branch can afford to offend him?" Xiao Chong was silent. He was still hesitating. Xiao Zhan did not allow him to think too much. He grabbed his neck and dragged him out of the study, rushing to Tingfeng Garden. Tingfeng Garden was brightly lit. The night was quiet. Xiao Han was standing in a dark stone passage. Behind him was the door to the secret chamber. He had been waiting outside the secret chamber for a few hours. He paced back and forth, praying silently in his heart, "Tianqing, you must succeed. Third uncle's health is deteriorating. The 3rd branch's position is in danger. If you can cure third uncle's injury, then you can let the 3rd branch continue to exist, and you can also fulfill my wish." At this moment, a guard hurried over and reported respectfully, "Divine General, there is someone in the main hall who wishes to see you." Xiao Han raised his eyebrows and asked, "Who wants to see me in the middle of the night?" The guard replied truthfully, "It is Xiao Zhan from the 2nd branch. He brought his son Xiao Chong. They said they are here to apologize to you. The father and son are both shirtless and carrying thorns on their backs. They are kneeling in the main hall." Xiao Han frowned and thought for a moment. "Ignore them. Let them kneel for a while." He was only worried about the 3rd elder's injury. He could not be bothered with the father and son. The guard hurriedly turned and left, not daring to disturb him. Very quickly, another 2 hours had passed. There was still no movement in the secret chamber. Xiao Han was still pacing back and forth, anxiously waiting. At this time, the guard returned and reported to Xiao Han again, reporting to Divine General, "There are 2 more people here to see you." Xiao Zhan frowned unhappily and asked, "Who is it this time?" The guard replied, "It is Xiao Ku and his son. They are also shirtless and carrying thorns on their backs. They are kneeling in the main hall and asking for forgiveness." Xiao Han frowned and sneered disdainfully. "These guys are quite sensible. They really don't care about their reputation and come here to apologize. Since that is the case, I will teach them an unforgettable lesson." After that, he instructed the guard, "Go and tell them to kneel in the main hall until dawn. They are not allowed to leave. Tell them to take care of their own children. Don't be a tyrant in the Xiao clan. Otherwise, sooner or later, they will be in big trouble." The guard acknowledged the order and hurriedly left. Xiao Han did not take this matter to heart. He continued to pace outside the secret chamber, paying attention to the movements in the secret chamber. He silently calculated in his heart. Ji Tianqing had said that he could cure the 3rd elder's injury before dawn. It was already dawn. In another 4 hours, the sun would rise. Chapter 1171. The night was dark and the cold wind was blowing. The main hall of the Tingfeng Garden was quiet. The gemstone lamp on the wall was shining with a dim yellow light. There were 4 guards outside the door. There were no guards inside the main hall, but there were 4 men kneeling in the middle of the hall. The 4 of them were bare-chested. Their hair was loose behind their backs and there were several thorny vines on their backs. They were led by 2 middle-aged men. They were both in the 7th or 8th level of Sky Origin stage. They looked dignified and extraordinary. They were the fathers of Xiao Zhan and Xiao Ku. The other 2 young men had swollen cheeks like balloons. They looked embarrassed and funny. Without a doubt, they were Xiao Chong and Xiao Ku. Xiao Zhan and Xiao Ku's fathers were kneeling in front. Xiao Chong and Xiao Ku were kneeling behind their fathers. The 4 of them were kneeling without moving. They lowered their heads and looked like they were waiting to be punished. The cold night wind blew into the hall, messing up the 4 people's hair. The cold air assaulted their bodies, causing them to shiver uncontrollably. However, they did not dare to move. The 4 of them looked terrible. Their emotions were complicated and their eyes kept changing. The reason why they had such a reaction was because a guard had come to convey Xiao Han's message. Damn Xiao Han. He didn't want to see us and made us kneel until dawn. Xiao Zhan whispered and said angrily, even if he is the Donglin divine general, he is still a disciple of the Xiao clan. We can't forget our roots. He can show off outside, but he dares to be so arrogant in the clan. He has gone too far. Xueqi's father also agreed. He whispered, this is just a grudge between the younger generation. Is there a need to make it so serious? Xiao Han is too protective. He humiliated us in order to protect his nephew. Xiao Zhan said with a gloomy expression. I originally thought that Xiao Han would forgive us just because we came to ask for forgiveness and put on an act. That would be the end of this matter. I didn't expect Xiao Han to be so heartless. He made us kneel for a whole night. When news of this spreads, everyone in the clan will laugh at us. Xueqi's father smiled bitterly and whispered, but we are already here. We can't just leave, can we? If that's the case, not only will we be humiliated for nothing, this matter won't be resolved, and will offend Xiao Han even more. Xiao Zhan sighed and said, yeah, since we've already come to confess, we should finish what we started. I hope we can resolve this matter completely. There are still 4 more hours before daybreak. Let's endure it a little longer. Xueqi's father nodded and remained silent. Behind the two of them, Xiao Chong and Xiao Ku were also communicating with their eyes and discussing with each other via voice transmission. Xiao Ku, what happened to your face? Why are your injuries more serious than before? Don't mention it. I went back and told my father about this and asked him to avenge me. I didn't expect him to slap me twice in anger. Xiao Chong, aren't you the same? Humph. It's all that bastard Xiao Han's fault. He hasn't come back for over 20 years, but he suddenly came back yesterday. He's a senior, a dignified divine general of the East Woods, but he dares to attack a junior. He doesn't care about his status at all. He doesn't have the demeanor of an expert at all. Yes. Xiao Han, this fellow was too overprotective. He was simply unreasonable. Unfortunately, he has a high position and great power. None of us can afford to offend him. I'm so angry. Humph. We can't afford to offend Xiao Han, but can't we afford to offend his nephew? That guy called Tian Xing looked like an idiot who had a golden exterior but was actually rotten inside. That guy only knows how to boast and deceive girls with flowery words. He doesn't even have the guts to fight with us. What a piece of trash. What ability does he have? Isn't he just relying on Xiao Han's protection? He actually dares to show off in our clan and seduce Xiao Ling. He deserves to die. Xiao Ku, we have to find a chance to teach that guy a lesson these few days. We have to make him lose face and run out of the Xiao clan with his tail between his legs. That's right. I also hate him to the core. I can't wait to step on him and crush him to death in front of everyone. But we have to plan carefully. We can't leave any evidence behind. Otherwise, Xiao Han will punish us again. Let's meet up tomorrow and find a few more brothers to discuss this matter together. 2 pairs of father and son and 4 Sky Origin stage experts knelt in the main hall silently, each with their own thoughts. Time passed silently, and 4 hours passed very quickly. The sky outside the main hall finally lit up. The sky was bright. The 2 pairs of father and son had knelt in the main hall for the whole night. Their hearts were filled with anger and resentment. Seeing that the sky was finally bright, the 4 of them were finally free. They all let out a long breath. They quickly got up and walked out of the main hall. They left Tingfeng Garden as if they were escaping. At the same time, Xiao Han, who was pacing back and forth outside the secret chamber, finally stopped. The heavy door of the secret chamber suddenly made a muffled sound and slowly opened. Xiao Han immediately turned around and looked into the secret chamber with bright eyes. His face was full of anticipation. When the door of the secret chamber opened, Ji Tianxing, who was wearing a white robe, walked out tiredly. Xiao Han quickly went up to him and asked expectantly, Tianxing, how is it? Ji Tianxing nodded and smiled. Third Elder's injuries are 80% healed. It's not a big problem. He will be completely healed after a few more months of rest. Hearing this, Xiao Han's eyes lit up and he clenched his fists excitedly. That's great. Tianxing, you are indeed the disciple of the godly doctor. You actually cured Third Elder's hidden injuries that have troubled him for more than 100 years. Thank you so much. I, Xiao Han, will remember your kindness in my heart and will never forget it. As he spoke, Xiao Han sincerely bowed to him, expressing his most sincere gratitude. Ji Tianqing helped him up and smiled. You don't have to be so courteous. You helped me enter the Shao clan and I helped you to cure Third Elder. This is also my way of returning the favor. All right, I'll leave the rest to you. I'm going back to my room to rest. All right. You must have been tired last night. I'll send someone to bring you to rest. Shao Han quickly called for a guard and brought Ji Tianqing to rest. He then entered the secret chamber to check on Third Elder's condition. He saw that Third Elder was still lying on the ice bed in deep sleep. His entire body was wrapped in a layer of faint green light. His originally aged skin had regained its jade-white luster. His withered and yellow face had also become younger by a few decades. It was as though he had regained his youth. The hidden injuries and deadly poisons hidden in his body had all been removed. Not only that, Third Elder's strength had also recovered to its peak state. His aura was very stable and powerful. He was like a normal second-level soul cultivation realm expert. There was no difference. Before last night, he was still in his twilight years with only 3 years of life left. But now, he was full of energy and vitality. It would not be a problem for him to live another 500 years. This was simply an unbelievable miracle. Chapter 1172. Not long after, the green light on Third Elder's body dissipated. He woke up from his deep slumber and slowly opened his eyes. Shao Han hurriedly approached him and asked with concern, "Third uncle, you're finally awake. How do you feel?" It was as if the Third Elder had fallen asleep. He didn't know what had happened. Where's Tianqing? Has the treatment ended? He sat up from the frozen jade bed, moved his limbs, and used his soul to check the condition of his body. With one look, he was instantly stunned. Oh my God! My injuries are all healed? Isn't this too unbelievable? Where's Tianqing? Did he really heal all of my injuries? The Third Elder let out a cry of surprise as he touched his body to check the condition of his body. He also found that his skin was no longer old, and his appearance had returned to his youth. Even the magic power in his body was surging, and his vitality was boundless. Even if he lived for another 500 years, he would not age like before. Such a huge change made him so excited that he could not control himself. He was so excited that his face was flushed red, and his eyes were covered with a layer of mist. If it did not happen to him, how could he believe in such a miracle? Third Elder was so excited that he could not control himself. He jumped down from the frozen jade bed, grabbed Shao Han's arm with both hands, and said excitedly, "Shao Han, Third Uncle has been tormented by hidden injuries for more than 100 years. I always thought that I would reach the end of my life after 300 years. This is too unbelievable. Tianqing actually saved me. I don't have any injuries on my body, as if I've returned to my youth." Seeing Third Elder so excited, Shao Han also felt the same. He nodded and said, "Third Uncle, Tianqing is not only the #1 genius of our clan, but also the #1 genius of the entire Tianxian continent. He has already created countless miracles, and now he healed your injuries in one night. I'm not afraid of you laughing at me, but no matter what miracles he creates, I won't be surprised. Because I've already been shocked to the point of numbness by the various miracles he has created." The Third Elder nodded his head repeatedly and exhorted in a solemn tone, "Shao Han, you are the most outstanding disciple of our Shao clan in the past 300 years. You are also the pride of our clan. However, it's your fortune to be able to befriend Tianqing. It's also our Shao clan's fortune. Let me warn you, you must maintain a good relationship with him in the future. No matter what, don't offend him." Shao Han chuckled and shook his head. "Third Uncle, you worry too much. Tianqing is definitely not a fish in a pond. One day, he will transform into a true dragon and soar into the 9 heavens. Why would I offend him for no reason? Moreover, I know Tianqing's character the best. As long as we don't challenge his bottom line, he won't be our enemy." Hearing him say so, Third Elder was relieved and hurriedly urged, "Shao Han, quickly bring me to see Tianqing. I must thank him in person." As he spoke, he pulled Shao Han and was about to leave the secret chamber. Halfway through, he suddenly thought of something. "Oh right, we can't go empty-handed. I have to prepare a generous gift to show my sincerity." Shao Han hurriedly pulled him and persuaded with a smile, "Third Uncle, Tianqing was busy last night and consumed too much of his spiritual power. He is now recuperating and adjusting his breath. Even if you want to thank him in person, you have to do it another day, right? Third elder was stunned for a moment. He slapped his forehead and said with a wry smile, "Oh, that's true. Look at my memory. I'm so old and muddle-headed that I forgot about it when I was happy. All right, let Tianqing rest for a day. Tomorrow, you accompany me to thank him in person." Xiao Han thought for a moment and said with a smile, "Third uncle, Tianqing told me before that after you wake up, you should refine magic weapons for Ling and Chen first. The Holy Fire Festival is in 2 days. If you delay any longer, I'm afraid it will be too late." This third elder was stunned for a moment and said with some hesitation, "It's not a problem to refine magic weapons for them. But if I want to thank Tianqing in person, won't I have to postpone it for a few days?" Xiao Han nodded and said, "Yes, this matter is not urgent. You can refine magic weapons for the 2 juniors first." "All right, then tell them to bring the materials to see me in the workshop." Third elder also knew the importance of this matter and hurriedly instructed Xiao Han. Xiao Han responded and hurriedly sent someone to inform Xiao Chen and Xiao Ling. Then, he accompanied third elder and rushed to the workshop in the depths of Tingfeng Garden. In a courtyard in the corner of Tingfeng Garden. It was early in the morning. A few young men and women were practicing sword techniques in the courtyard. There were also a few older young men and women sitting cross-legged under the great banyan tree, quietly meditating and practicing. These were the Xiao clan's disciples from the 3rd branch. All of them were outstanding talents with high martial talent. Xiao Ling and Xiao Chen were the leaders of the 3rd branch. They were also the most outstanding geniuses. At this moment, the 2 of them were standing under the roof, observing their younger brothers and sisters practicing sword techniques while conversing softly. Xiao Chen looked at Xiao Ling and asked with a heart full of expectation, "Sister Ling did that young master really say that?" "Of course." Xiao Ling nodded and said with a frown, "What do you mean by that young master?" "His name is Tianqing. He has a name, okay?" Tianqing did not put Xiao Chong and Xiao Ku in his eyes at all. I can see that Tianqing looked at them as if he was looking at 2 ants. I swear on my character that he was not deliberately mystifying them. His contempt came from the bottom of his heart and soul. Only a peerless genius would have such confidence. Confidence and arrogance that comes from the soul. Xiao Chen scratched his head and said with some hesitation, "We have all seen Tianqing's strength with our own eyes. He is indeed a transcendent spirit refinement realm expert. Even if you say that he is the #1 genius in the world, I will not deny it. However, Third Grandpa is already injured to such an extent. How can Tianqing cure him? Tianqing is so young. Even if his martial talent is extraordinary, is he proficient in medicine? Third Grandpa's internal injuries have been for more than 100 years. So many elders and experts in the clan could not cure him. How can Tianqing do it?" Xiao Ling glared at him unhappily and shouted angrily, "Xiao Chen! Which side are you on? Don't you want Third Grandpa to get better?" "Humph. I think you are just jealous of big brother Tianqing. You are jealous that he is more handsome, younger, and stronger than you." Xiao Chen's face immediately turned green as he looked at her speechlessly. At this moment, a guard rushed over and reported respectfully, "Miss Ling young Master Chen, Lord Divine General summoned you to the forging workshop. Lord Divine General has instructed you to bring the materials for refining weapons, and Third Elder will immediately refine the magic weapons for you." Suddenly hearing this news, Xiao Ling and Xiao Chen were dumbfounded. They were petrified on the spot. After a moment, Xiao Ling was the first to recover. She immediately jumped up in excitement and cheered excitedly. "Wah! Big brother Tianqing really did it. He really cured Third Grandpa." Xiao Chen's eyes widened in shock. His face was filled with disbelief. He looked up at the sky with lifeless eyes and cried out involuntarily, "Oh my God! That guy actually created a miracle? He is so strong and his medical skills are so heaven-defying. Is he still human?" As soon as he finished speaking, Xiao Ling glared at him and even stomped on his foot. "Hey, how can you say that? If big brother Tianqing is not human, then what is he?" After saying that, she angrily flung her sleeves and stepped out of the house, walking out of the courtyard. Chapter 1173. Xiao Chen explained to Xiao Ling along the way. Unknowingly, They arrived at the blacksmithing workshop. Just as the two of them arrived at the entrance of the workshop, they saw 4 guards standing guard outside the door. The place was heavily guarded. Spiritual energy fluctuations kept coming from the blacksmithing workshop. There were also surging and berserk earth flame essence chi flickering continuously. Clearly, the previously quiet blacksmithing workshop was finally going to start refining. The last bit of worry in Xiao Chen's heart vanished without a trace. When Xiao Chen followed Xiao Ling into the blacksmithing workshop, he saw Xiao Han standing in the hall. Not far away, there was a 30-meter-tall black cauldron wrapped in a layer of 5-colored spiritual light. Intense flames kept rising from the cauldron. The hale and hearty third elder with a head full of white hair stood in the air above the black cauldron. He continuously sent out beams of light with his palms, injecting vast magic energy into the cauldron. Xiao Chen and Xiao Ling looked up at the third elder. When they saw that he looked 10 years younger, brimming with energy and vast magic energy, they immediately revealed expressions of disbelief. If they had not seen it for themselves, the two would not have believed that the third elder had undergone such a drastic change in just one night. This was simply inconceivable. At the same time, Xiao Han shouted with a dignified expression, "What are the two of you still standing there for? Don't waste time. Quickly hand over the materials and let the third elder refine the magic treasure for you." Only then did the two recover their wits. They quickly took out the tailbone and eyeball of the cloud-modeled beast, as well as several sets of metal materials from their spatial rings. Xiao Han waved his hand and sent out a beam of 5-colored light, sweeping up all the materials and handing them to the third elder. "All right, you can go out now. Before the Holy Fire Festival starts, come here to collect your magic treasures." Xiao Han waved his sleeves and said with a dignified expression. Xiao Chen and Xiao Ling were filled with excitement. They immediately bowed and expressed their gratitude to Xiao Han and the third elder. After that, the two left the blacksmithing workshop, filled with joy and anticipation. On the way back to his residence, Xiao Chen still had a smile on his face. After he obtained the magic treasure, he would be able to suppress everyone in the Holy Fire Festival and become the champion. However, Xiao Ling's beautiful eyes flickered. A crafty look flashed in her clear eyes. She pretended to be calm and said, "Xiao Chen, you can go back first. I have something to do and will be leaving for a while." With that, she turned to leave. Xiao Chen immediately stopped and asked in confusion, "Little sister Ling, where are you going?" "The night after tomorrow is the Holy Fire Festival. The third elder is refining magic treasures for us. We should prepare well." "Oh, you must be looking for young Master Tianxing, right?" Xiao Linger instantly frowned and glared at him angrily. "What does it have to do with you? Go prepare yourself." As she spoke, she quickly ran away, and her figure quickly disappeared at the end of the blue stone path. Xiao Chen stood in place and looked at her back as she left. He felt a little sour in his heart. He muttered in a somewhat desolate manner, "Why does little sister Ling look like she is going to meet her lover? Did she really fall in love with that guy? If that's the case, I wonder how many young disciples will be heartbroken." As soon as he finished speaking, he shook his head with a bitter smile, turned around and left. Xiao Ling asked around in Tingfeng Garden and found out that Ji Tianxing and Xiao Han lived in Pine Tree Courtyard. This courtyard had a quiet and secluded environment and was filled with spiritual energy. It was one of the best courtyards in Tingfeng Garden. Only the most distinguished people could live in it. Normally, juniors like Xiao Ling and Xiao Chen did not have the qualifications to come here. When she entered Pine Tree Courtyard and stood outside Ji Tianxing's room, she was immediately stopped by 2 guards. One of them bowed to Xiao Ling and said expressionlessly, "Miss Ling our clan's distinguished guest lives here. Please do not disturb him." Xiao Ling had already expected this. She said seriously, "I don't need you to remind me. I am here on Uncle Xiao Han's orders to find Big Brother Tianxing to discuss some matters. Move aside." She was exceptionally intelligent and had a nimble mind. Lying was naturally easy for her. The 2 guards looked at each other, not daring to confirm if her words were true or false. After hesitating for a moment, they could only step back and move aside. "Miss Ling please." Xiao Ling revealed a faint smile. She pushed open the door and entered the room. The room was very quiet. There was no one in the spacious and bright living room. There was also no one in the side bedroom and study. Xiao Ling walked around the room, but she did not see Ji Tianxing anywhere. Big Brother Tianqing clearly lives here. He should be in his room. Where did he go? She muttered doubtfully. Suddenly, a calm and gentle voice sounded from behind her. Miss Ling, are you looking for me? This voice sounded abruptly and right next to her ear. It immediately gave Xiao Ling a fright. She suddenly turned around and saw that Ji Tianqing had appeared behind her without her knowing. He was so quiet that she did not notice him at all. Ji Tianqing still looked the same as before. He was wearing a white robe, his long hair reached his waist, and his entire body emitted a transcendent and noble aura. The corner of his mouth held a faint smile. At that moment, Xiao Ling looked at him from such a close distance and was actually somewhat stunned. Only when Ji Tianqing stretched out his hand and waved it in front of her eyes did she come back to her senses. She hurriedly lowered her head. Her expression was slightly embarrassed and shy. She explained somewhat uneasily, Big Brother Tianqing, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to disturb. Ji Tianqing nodded slightly. He still had a calm expression as he said, It's fine. I just finished recuperating. If you have something to say, just say it. Xiao Ling was suddenly speechless. Her heartbeat sped up again. She did not know what to say. Previously, she was only agitated for a moment and wanted to find Ji Tianqing to thank him in person. But now that she saw Ji Tianqing, her mind went blank and she forgot about this matter. Ji Tianqing could not help but reveal a smile when he saw that she was usually mischievous but slightly stupid in front of him. Miss Ling, you probably came to find me to thank me in person, right? Right. Xiao Ling only remembered the reason after he reminded her. She hurriedly nodded and said, I just wanted to thank Big Brother Tianqing in person. Ji Tianqing said with a calm expression, It's nothing. You don't have to thank me. Xiao Ling was at a loss again. Her beautiful eyes looked around, but she did not know what to say. However, Ji Tianqing looked at her with a smile, waiting for her to get down to business. This made her feel even more awkward and uneasy. Finally, Ji Tianqing took the initiative to speak. Miss Ling, this is my first time in the Xiao clan. I have nothing to do and want to take a stroll outside. Can you be my guide? Xiao Ling's eyes immediately lit up. She hurriedly nodded and said, Of course I'm willing. It's Ling's honor to be able to serve Big Brother Tianqing. She happily agreed and hurriedly brought Ji Tianqing out of the pine tree courtyard and strolled around Tingfeng Garden. The two of them chatted as they walked. It did not take long for them to walk around Tingfeng Garden. Hence, under Ji Tianqing's request, Xiao Ling brought him out of Tingfeng Garden. Chapter 1174. Ji Tianqing and Xiao Ling flew through the Xiao clan, crossing several mountain ranges and plains. Every time they passed by a place, Xiao Ling would tell Ji Tianqing about the interesting things that happened in those places when she was young. 2 hours later, the two of them were a few hundred miles away from the breezing garden and stopped at a dark green mountain. The two of them landed in the valley and looked up at the tall mountain. They saw a silver waterfall pouring down from the peak of the mountain. The 300-meter-wide torrent poured down with a rumbling sound, splashing up a mist that filled the sky and creating a loud rumbling sound in the valley. The sunlight shone on the jade-white waterfall, reflecting a dazzling radiance. It looked exceptionally dreamy and blurred. Xiao Ling pointed at the majestic waterfall and the deep pool below it. She smiled and said, Big Brother Tianqing, this is the Flying Star Waterfall. We often played here when we were young. Back then, everyone liked to come here to play in the water and dive into the deep pool to catch fish. Later on, when we grew up, we practiced our swordsmanship and inner strength under the waterfall. Those 2 years were too tough. Now that I think about it, it still feels like yesterday. Xiao Ling's face revealed a look of reminiscence. Her smile was very sincere and clean. Ji Tianqing nodded and said emotionally, Every martial arts genius has a story of extraordinary hardships and hardships behind them. The sharpness of a treasured sword is sharpened, and the fragrance of plum blossoms comes from the bitter cold. Only martial artists who never admit defeat and have gone through countless trials and tribulations can become experts. Xiao Ling nodded in agreement. She looked up at his face and asked with bright eyes, Big Brother Tianqing, can you tell me about your past? Ji Tianqing's lips curled into a smile. My story? There are too many. Which one do you want to hear? Xiao Ling thought for a while and said with a smile, When I was 15 or 16. Ji Tianqing's body trembled, and a strange look flashed in his eyes. He was about to reject her when the sound of something breaking through the air came from the entrance of the valley. 6 young martial artists in luxurious clothes flew across the sky at lightning speed and landed in the valley. Swish! 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 The 6 of them landed beside Ji Tianqing and Xiao Ling, surrounding the 2 of them. Xiao Linger's expression instantly went grim when she saw these 6 young disciples, and her beautiful face was covered in frost. The 6 of them were the best in the 2nd branch and the 5th branch of Xiao clan. They were all in their early 20s and had reached the 3rd level of Sky Origin stage. The 2 people in the lead were Xiao Chong and Xiao Ku, though their cheeks were no longer swollen and funny as they had been the day before. However, a few bloodstains could still be seen on their faces. The 2 of them stared coldly at Ji Tianqing, sneering. "Brat, just now, this young master's informant came to report that you and Xiao Ling walked out of Tingfeng Garden together." This young master didn't quite believe it. "I didn't expect you to be so thick-skinned and shameless. You've progressed so quickly. Little brat, you had Xiao Han's protection yesterday. Now that you've fallen into our hands, let's see if you still dare to be arrogant." "Aren't you arrogant? Aren't you famous? Aren't you envied and challenged wherever you go? Come on, if you're a man, then repeat what you said yesterday." The 2 of them had a manic aura, and their eyes were surging with anger and killing intent. As soon as the 2 of them finished speaking, the other 4 young men from Xiao clan burst into laughter. The 4 of them held onto their swords and stared maliciously at Ji Tianqing with mocking sneers on their faces. Seeing this, Xiao Ling was instantly enraged. She berated with a frosty face, "Xiao Chong, Xiao Ku, wasn't yesterday's lesson enough? The 2 of you clearly know Brother Tianqing's identity, yet you still dare to seek revenge so insolently. Aren't you afraid of being punished by the Hall of Law?" Xiao Chong glared at her fiercely and sneered, "Humph! What bullshit identity? Isn't he just relying on Xiao Han's protection? Without Xiao Han's presence, this brat is just a piece of trash. Other than bragging and using flowery words to deceive a silly girl like you, what else does he have?" Xiao Ku also sneered and said, "If it weren't for this brat, why would we be in such a sorry state? The humiliation we suffered last night, we'll pay him back in double today." Xiao Ling was instantly enraged. She pointed at the 2 of them and berated, "Xiao Chong, Xiao Ku, don't forget that the clan rules forbid private fights. Don't tell me you want to be expelled from the clan?" "Haha, what do you mean by private fight?" Xiao Chong sneered and said fearlessly, "We were just curious about the Xiao clan's branch disciple and wanted to have a friendly spar with him. Don't worry, we won't kill him. As long as he kneels down and kowtows to me, I'll spare his life." Xiao Ku also grinned and said with a hideous smile, "Tianqing Xiao, as long as you kowtow to the 6 of us and get out of the Xiao clan, we'll spare you." The 2's ugly faces made Xiao Ling tremble in anger. She scolded in a cold tone, "You bunch of beasts that are worse than pigs and dogs. The Hall of Law will definitely punish you severely." Xiao Chong sneered in disdain. "This place is a few hundred miles away from the Hall of Law. Other than us, who would know what happened? Even if you went to complain to the Hall of Law, would he believe the 2 of you or the 6 of us? Do you think that the Hall of Law will be like you, helping an outsider and helping a lowly branch disciple?" The word lowly deeply provoked Xiao Ling causing her to be enraged. She subconsciously wanted to draw her sword. "Xiao Chong, how dare you insult Big Brother Tianqing? I'll fight it out with you." In her heart, Ji Tianqing was a graceful and elegant young master in a chaotic world. He was also a peerless genius, a peerless prodigy that couldn't be blasphemed. However, just as she was about to pull out her sword, a broad and powerful palm gently pressed down on her weak shoulder. That palm was very warm, but it was as heavy as a mountain, causing her to be unable to move. She turned her head to look to the side and saw Ji Tianqing looking at her with a smile on his face. He said in a gentle tone, "It's not worth it to get angry with a bunch of beasts. They aren't worthy." Seeing Ji Tianqing smile and hearing his voice, Xiao Ling didn't know why, but the rage in her heart actually instantly dissipated, and her entire heart calmed down. She was filled with confidence towards Ji Tianqing, and her heart was filled with a sense of security. She believed that as long as he was by her side, even if the sky collapsed, he would support it with one arm. This was the magic on his body, the charm that he possessed. However, a burst of ear-piercing mocking laughter interrupted her thoughts and also destroyed the beautiful atmosphere. "Ha! Brothers, quickly look. This fellow is still pretending when he's about to die. Tisk tsk, hearing about him really can't compare to meeting him in person. This kid is simply arrogant to the point of being out of control. Humph. I think that this fellow is a madman. Xiao Chong, Xueqi, and the others all had faces full of contempt and ridicule as they discussed. Chapter 1175. Ji Tianxing's words made everyone quiet down instantly. Xiao Chong, Xueqi, and the rest were stunned as they looked at him strangely. After a while, everyone came back to their senses and burst into laughter. Ha ha ha. I'm dying of laughter. This guy is really crazy. I think he even forgot his own surname, right? I've learned something new. I've never seen such a pretentious person in my life. Look at how serious his expression is when he's bragging. Even he believes it himself. I'm completely convinced. This guy is already possessed. The crowd roared with laughter as they mercilessly mocked him. Ji Tianxing's expression was still indifferent as he said in a cold tone, I originally didn't want to bother with you bunch of clowns, but you pestered me again and again. Then I can only give you a lesson that you'll never forget. Xiao Chong, Xueqi, and the rest burst into laughter again. The expressions on their faces became more and more ferocious, and the murderous aura on their bodies became heavier. But at this moment, Ji Tianxing's expression suddenly changed. He stood on the spot without moving. His hands were behind his back, and he had the posture of a powerhouse. But a dazzling white light gushed out of his body and instantly divided into 6 parts, enveloping Xiao Chong, Xueqi, and the rest. Swoosh! Within the white light, there was a vast and majestic soul energy. It immediately invaded the bodies of the 6 people and fiercely suppressed their souls. Suddenly, the laughter of the 6 people stopped abruptly. The expressions on their faces immediately stiffened, and their bodies also seemed to have been petrified. They had no idea what had happened. They only felt as if their souls were struck by lightning. Their minds went blank on the spot, and they lost the ability to think. In the next moment, unparalleled pain came from the depths of their souls, causing their bodies to tremble like a sieve. Their legs went soft, and they knelt on the ground. The 6 people were suffering the most terrifying pain in their lives. They were terrified to the extreme, and their faces were distorted as they screamed miserably. Cold sweat broke out all over their bodies. As they screamed miserably, they frantically kowtowed to Ji Tianxing and Xiao Ling. Their heads fiercely hit the ground, making banging sounds. In just a few breaths of time, the ground was dented by their heads, and a few blue stones were smashed into powder. Everyone kowtowed until their heads were full of blood. Their bodies were soaked in cold sweat, and hot yellow water was also coming out of their pants. They looked extremely miserable. Xiao Ling was dumbstruck at that moment. Her clear eyes opened wide, and her heart was filled with shock. She simply couldn't believe that these 6 fellows who were incomparably arrogant just a moment ago were now crazily kowtowing and begging for mercy as if they had seen the most terrifying demon god in the world. This was just too dreamy. Ji Tianxing looked at the crowd expressionlessly. His eyes were as calm as water, without the slightest ripple. A bunch of trash. I haven't even made a move yet, and you're already so scared. How pitiful. His voice was indifferent as he spoke. After which, he turned around and left with Xiao Linger. Even when he and Xiao Ling flew out of the valley and disappeared into the horizon, Xiao Chong, Xueqi, and the others were still kneeling on the ground, frantically kowtowing in pain and fear. After a long while, everyone finally regained their senses and hurriedly got up from the ground. They were all still in shock as they sized each other up. They saw that everyone's faces were covered in blood, and their hair was disheveled. Moreover, their clothes were soaked, and they were emitting the stench of feces and urine. They were simply in an extremely sorry state. Everyone recalled Ji Tianxing's words and instantly felt extremely humiliated. They even had the thought of committing suicide. My illustrious reputation is all ruined. Xiao Tianxing, I'll never let you go, you bastard. Bastard! I don't know what sorcery he used to bewitch our minds and make us kowtow to him. He deserves to die. Everyone roared with grief and indignation as they cursed crazily. After a long time, Xiao Chong and Xueqi gradually calmed down. Their eyes flickered with resentment. Xueqi lifted his sleeve to wipe the blood off his face. His face was livid with anger as he asked in a deep voice, Xiao Chong, Xiao Tianxing humiliated us like this. I swear I won't stop until I destroy his reputation. Xiao Chong was so angry that his face turned purple. He asked in a cold tone, "Then, what method do you have to wash away today's humiliation?" Xiaoke's eyes were filled with rage as he said with resentment, "It's still the same method as back then. I want him to suffer all kinds of humiliation during the Holy Fire Festival and be expelled from the Xiao clan like a stray dog." Hearing this, Xiao Chong immediately grinned coldly. That's right. Xiao Chen's elder brother was ruined by us just like that. If not for the third elder trying his best to protect and plead for mercy, he would have been expelled from the Xiao clan long ago. Even so, he is now a lowly odd-job worker, only able to work in the mines. Xiao Tianxing, that bastard, is just a branch family disciple. Even with Xiao Han's protection, he will not be able to escape the fate of being expelled from the clan. Xiao Ke nodded and exchanged glances with Xiao Chong. Both of them revealed sinister and resentful smiles. Ji Tianxing and Xiao Ling flew out of the valley and continued to fly towards the depths of the Xiao clan. After the two of them flew out for 250 kilometers, Xiao Linger stopped and stood in the sky above a dense forest. Elder brother Tianxing, this is as far as we can go. We can't go any further. Ji Tianxing looked ahead and saw a towering mountain that was over 10,000 meters tall at the end of the horizon 50 kilometers away. That towering mountain was shrouded in white clouds and thick fog. It looked very mysterious and emitted a majestic aura that could suppress the world. It was like a pillar that supported the sky in this alternate dimension. He asked doubtfully, "What's wrong? Why can't we go any further?" Xiao Ling hesitated for a while before explaining softly, "Elder brother Tianxing, that is our Xiao clan's forbidden ground, the Pillar of Heaven's mountain. It is said that the Xiao clan's old ancestor resides there." The Xiao clan's old ancestor's residence? Ji Tianxing raised his eyebrows as a playful look flashed in his eyes. Xiao Ling nodded and pulled his arm. Her eyes were clear as she said, "Elder brother Tianxing, let's go back. Ling knows how to brew tea. I will brew this year's spirit heart tea for you." Ji Tianxing smiled and waved his hand. "There's no need to go through so much trouble. The Holy Fire Festival is coming soon. You have to prepare well. Don't you want to leave the Xiao clan? Then you can't disappoint everyone." Xiao Ling's eyes lit up when she heard that. She raised her head and asked, "Elder brother Tianxing, will you leave the Xiao clan after the Holy Fire Festival?" "Yes." Ji Tianxing nodded slightly. "If I get the top 2 in the assessment and leave the Xiao clan, will I be able to see you often in the future?" Ji Tianxing only smiled and didn't answer. Xiao Ling was certain of the answer in her heart. She clenched a small fist and said firmly, "Elder brother Tianxing, don't worry. I will definitely get the top 2 in the assessment. I won't let you down." Ji Tianxing smiled and said, "Then you should go back and prepare. I will walk around by myself." Xiao Ling didn't doubt him at all. She quickly nodded and agreed. After bidding farewell, she flew back. Chapter 1176. Ji Tianxing came to the Xiao clan to meet the Xiao clan's patriarch. He didn't care about the Xiao clan's Holy Fire Festival or the grudges between the young disciples. In fact, he was just a passerby to the Xiao clan. He came to the Xiao clan to verify one thing. Once he got the answer, he could leave without any worries. Therefore, when he found out that the Pillar of Heaven's mountain was the residence of the Xiao clan's patriarch, he rushed over without hesitation. Swoosh! He passed through the clouds and landed on the peak of the Pillar of Heaven's mountain that was 10,000 meters tall. On the peak of the Pillar of Heaven's mountain, there was a piece of flat land with a radius of 10 miles. This piece of land was filled with dark red spiritual feather maple leaves. The red leaves were like the feathers of a divine bird and were as red as fire. Surrounded by thousands of spiritual feather maple leaves, there was a wooden house made of black soul wood. The wooden house had 2 floors and about 6 to 7 rooms. An invisible soul-grade array protected the entire wooden house. Even after thousands of years, it wouldn't decay. Every room in the wooden house had its own defensive array that contained the power of space. They all had their own mysteries. In the small courtyard outside the wooden house, there was a 300-meter-tall green maple tree. The tree trunk was 30 meters thick and the wide tree crown covered an area with a radius of 10,000 feet. Pieces of dark green maple leaves fell from the tree crown, sprinkling in the quiet little courtyard, making rustling sounds. Under the 1,000-year-old tree, there was a green stone table and 2 stone stools. On the table, there was a chessboard with hundreds of black and white chess pieces. Beside the table, there was a green jade pot filled with bejeweled nectar that emitted an intoxicating fragrance. A skinny old man in a black robe with white hair that reached his waist was sitting on the stone stools like a withered tree. He didn't move at all. His aura was extremely restrained, like an ordinary person. There wasn't even any aura of life on his body. He was like a piece of withered wood. Regardless of whether one looked at him with a naked eye or spiritual consciousness, one would mistakenly think that he was an old man who had passed away. However, Ji Tianqing's spiritual energy could detect that the black-robed old man's spiritual energy was as vast as the sea. He could vaguely sense that the white-haired old man's spirit power seemed to have reached the peak of the soul refinement realm and was only a step away from entering the essence soul supremacy realm. The black-robed old man sat under the tree. His white hair and black robes were covered with dozens of green maple leaves. No one knew how long he had been sitting under the tree, but he hadn't moved at all. He stared at the chessboard on the table without any ripples in his eyes. He held a black chess piece in his right hand. It hovered in the air and did not fall down. Ji Tianqing lightly stepped into the small courtyard and walked towards the Qing maple tree. The black-robed old man's back was facing him. He didn't seem to have noticed his arrival and remained motionless. Moments later, Ji Tianqing walked under the green maple tree and stood beside the black-robed old man. He cupped his hands in greeting and said, "Junior Ji Tianqing pays his respects to the Shao clan's patriarch." Without a doubt, this black-robed old man was the Shao clan's patriarch. He ignored Ji Tianqing and continued to stare at the chessboard with a focused gaze. Ji Tianqing could only stand at the side and wait quietly. Unknowingly, an hour had passed. The Shao clan's patriarch seemed to have finally thought of the answer. A bright light flashed across his deep eyes. Smack! The black chess piece in his right hand landed on the chessboard on the stone table with a crisp sound. When the chess piece landed, a majestic aura erupted from his body. It was as if he had just come alive. It was only then that Ji Tianqing asked, "Senior, who are you playing chess with?" The Shao clan's patriarch didn't look at him. He pointed above his head and said a word in a deep voice. "Heaven." Ji Tianqing raised his eyebrows as a playful smile appeared on his face. "Senior, you're playing chess with the heavens? This reminds me of something in the past. There was once a paragon expert who lived in seclusion and used his great abilities to observe the heavens and the world. He also set up a huge chess game in the square outside his residence and spent thousands of years playing chess with the heavens." The Shao clan's patriarch was slightly moved, and a bright light flashed across his eyes. He then raised his head and looked deeply at Ji Tianqing. He raised his eyebrows and asked, "What was the result?" Ji Tianqing smiled and raised a finger. "He won against the heavens and left." "Left? By the heavens?" The Shao clan's patriarch's expression changed. His eyes shone brightly as he asked, "That person was an essence soul paragon?" Ji Tianqing nodded and said in a serious tone, "That senior observed the heavens and the world and played chess with the heavens for 8,000 years. He went through 9 heavenly tribulations and finally broke through the void and went to another continent." "Another continent?" The Shao clan's patriarch's expression changed drastically as he stood up. He was so agitated that the white beard on his chin was trembling. He grabbed Ji Tianqing's arm and asked, "You know all this? Do you know how to go to that continent? Is it only by entering that continent can one see the secrets of the heavenly tribulations and becoming a saint?" Obviously, the Shao clan's patriarch knew very little about the other continent, but he yearned for it. Ji Tianqing shook his head lightly and said calmly, "I have just entered the soul tempering stage and have only heard about the other continent recently. I know very little about it. How would I know the way to go to that continent?" The Shao clan's patriarch nodded slightly and calmed down. He sat back down on the stone bench. He looked at Ji Tianqing expressionlessly and asked in a deep voice, "You are the Ji Tianqing that Shao Han mentioned in the letter?" "That's right, I am," Ji Tianqing replied in a manner that was neither servile nor overbearing. The Shao clan's patriarch said calmly, "No matter how famous you are in the middle ground, it has nothing to do with me. The Shao clan has never interfered in the affairs of the continent. This old man has already ordered Shao Han to bring you here after the Holy Fire Festival. You came uninvited and trespassed into my cave abode. Aren't you afraid that I will punish you?" Ji Tianqing saw that he was showing signs of anger, but he was not worried. He smiled and said, "Senior, please don't be angry. Please listen to my story. 1,000 years ago, the ancient demon emperor wreaked havoc in the world. He invaded the middle ground and cruelly massacred millions of people. At that time, a peerless prodigy appeared in the human race. He single-handedly defeated the army of 1,000,000 demons and killed the ancient demon emperor with one sword. He sealed him in the Tianshan region. A few years later, the chaos of the demons was quelled, and this peerless prodigy became the publicly acknowledged strongest person in the continent. With just one sword, he broke all the laws in the world and killed all the strong enemies. Everyone in the world called him Ken Shin. Hearing this, the Shao clan's patriarch's expression changed drastically. His deep eyes surged with light, and his expression became extremely solemn. Ji Tianxing continued, "Everyone thinks that Ken Shin is arrogant, cold, and heartless. He will never take in disciples in his life. However, very few people know that although Ken Shin does not take in disciples, he once guided a few young talents and taught 4 young geniuses. Among the 4, one of them happened to have the surname Shao. Senior, don't you think this is very coincidental?" After saying that, he looked at the Shao clan's patriarch with a smile. The Shao clan's patriarch frowned. His entire body was wrapped in a layer of coldness, and a majestic divine spirit power was accumulated in his body. He stared at Ji Tianxing warily and asked in a cold voice, "Kid, who are you? How do you know this secret?" Ji Tianxing looked straight at him. His chest was open, and he said righteously, "The successor of the sword god." Ha ha ha. The Shao clan's patriarch raised his head and laughed loudly. His entire body erupted with rage, and his aura skyrocketed. Ridiculous! The sword god had already fallen 1,000 years ago. How old are you? How dare you tease me like this? Aren't you afraid that I'll break your neck? Before Ji Tianxing could speak, the ancient voice of the burial of heaven came from the broken sword. You're tuning in to the Xueqi's Martial Arts Saga YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.